Detroit in postseason play for the first time in 12 years. The last time the Tigers were in the league championship series, in fact, the only time since the leagues went to this format, was 1972 when they lost to Oakland in 5.
When a baseball season starts, it's like the dawn of a new day. There's optimism, hope, and a belief of what is to come. At the dawn of the 1984 season, this rang truer than most years. For unlike much of the sport's history, there was no dominant team lording over the competition. Following a decade of dynasties in the 70s, ruled by the A's, the Big Red Machine, and the Yankees.
The Yankees win their 21st World Series.
The 80s began with 4 different champions in 4 years.
A liner, and the Orioles are the world champions.
But if one had to choose a favorite, many would have picked the defending champs, the Baltimore Orioles.
They're awful tough. You know, there's no question. I think you're only kidding yourself if we don't recognize that Baltimore's the best club in baseball.
Detroit Tigers skipper Sparky Anderson may have had a healthy respect for his division rivals, but having managed multiple Hall of Famers to a pair of championships in Cincinnati, he also knew that in his 6th year in the Motor City, he had a ball club on the verge of greatness.
Bill James once said that the greatest 5-year span in draft history is between 74 and 78, when the Tigers literally drafted this team from Lance Parrish in 74. You had Lou Whitaker in 75, Trammell, Petrie, Morris in 76. This is a very young core. They were all in their mid-20s.
Sparky came in with a 5-year plan, and you know it's kind of cute when you say that 5-year plan was because he had a 5-year contract. But he had a method to his madness, so to speak. I mean, he knew exactly what he was doing. 83, we were knocking on the door, but 84, with the right pieces added, we felt like we were mature enough and ready to handle it.
The pieces added weren't abundant, but they were key. First came the power. Fresh off a 30-homer All-Star season, veteran Darrell Evans brought strong leadership and pop. Later came backup first baseman Dave Bergman over from the National League, as well as a reliever who had the potential to fill a big role.
Sparky knew that he needed a closer, and he did the 83 playoffs on radio, and he saw Willie Hernandez, and then he saw him in the World Series as a fan, and he said, we've got to get this guy.
Hernandez goes right at the screwball to strike him out.
Sparky got his guy, and with a roster that he had shaped, headed north, brimming.
So my wife on the phone, I always tell her when we leave camp where we're going to finish. I said, we're going to win this.
The Tigers kicked things off in Minnesota with a convincing 2-game sweep of the Twins. Then they rolled into Chicago, and in their 4th game of the season in front of a national television audience, Detroit made a strong statement.
Now here comes Sparky Anderson, the Detroit Tigers. I have never seen Sparky so optimistic, and one of the reasons, I guess, is one of the oldest cliches in baseball, how strong the Tigers are up the middle.
He starts talking about it, and you can just see him just smile all over. Why not? Lance Parrish, who looks like a condominium, the shape he's in there behind the plate. At shortstop, this is an outstanding ball player, and Alan Trammell and Whitaker at second base, probably the best double play combination, I think, in baseball. And then in center field, Chet Lemon did himself quite a job last year, and he's beginning where he left off. Yesterday he had a big day.
So 2 of the standout ball clubs in the big league. The Chicago White Sox have won by 20, and the Detroit Tigers, who seriously think they can upend Baltimore. Well, they'll be coming up right after this. Well, on the mound is certainly somebody you've got to like. The winningest pitcher in the last 5 years in the major leagues, Jack Morris. He's won 84 over that period, a 20-game winner. He led the league in strikeouts. One thing that's a little shocking about Jack Morris, however, is the fact that he's pitching on 3 days rest. It's a little early to be pitching on 3 days, and in checking last year, he pitched 14 times on 3 days rest. He won 5 and lost 8. 1-1 pitch to Rudy is a drive to right field. Gibson going back on the track at the wall, one-hands it. Fine play by Kirk Gibson in right field, and that ball was drilled by Rudy Law. Hey, Al, Kline, take another look, huh?
Yes, sir. Kline works with him. He's playing deeper. He had that thing zeroed in all the way. He knew exactly where he was and makes a good play on it.
Good.
That was that split-fingered fastball or forkball, and that thing really rolled off the table. Roger Craig teaches it, and you watch that thing break straight down. The arm speed is the important thing, and thinking split-fingered fastball, the arm speed is of the fastball, and watch it just break down because you cannot possibly throw it hard when you grip it between your index finger and your middle finger. And Roger teaches it to grip it like a fastball and keep spreading your fingers until you find a comfortable spot.
Oh, he is humming. So we have our strikeout scene set because Bannister had 1, and now Morris comes back with 2. And at the end of an inning, the Tigers nothing and the Sox nothing. Parrish goes, and there's a high fly ball into deep left field. Back goes Kittle, away back, it's gone. Two to nothing in favor of Detroit on that home run by Chet Lemon, with Lance Parrish aboard in the second inning. Chased it.
Oh, there's that split-fingered fastball again, and I mean, you talk about it, it's like a dry spitter.
So you spell that King with a capital K. That's his 3rd strikeout. Jack Morris, the leader last year. We'll be right back after these messages from your local station. A number to third. Right there is Tommy Brookins. And over to Barbet. So 2 down in the 3rd. And that means Jack Morris has retired 8 in a row. And the batter will be Julio Cruz. And there he goes. And it means that Jack Morris now has 4 strikeouts. The Law at second, Fisk at first. Nobody out.
Do you run him or do you hold him now? What do you do now?
Down 2-0. Baines, left-hand hitter. I think I'd keep him there. I got to have Lazinski come up with a bunch on the bases.
I agree with you.
And they're not going. And there's ball 4. So Jack Morris has come apart in the sense he has walked the bases full. He is looking to Sparky, saying, shall I wind up or stretch? And we'll see the result of that in a moment. Rudy Law at 3rd, Carlton Fisk at 2nd, Harold Baines at 1st. Check swing, hit back to Morris, goes to Parrish, over to Garbe, double play. Three and 2 to Kittle. Got him. So Morris makes a lot of pitches and then relies on his favorite weapon, the strikeout. The Sox lead 2. It's 2-0 Detroit at the end of 4. We'll be right back after these messages from your local station. 1 and 2. Fastball got him looking. So Rudy Law down on strikes. That's a half a dozen strikeouts for Jack Morris. Breaking ball, a little dipper, maybe a slider got him. So Fisk strikes out, and that's 7 strikeouts for Jack Morris. Morris's high last year, he had a dozen strikeouts.
Here's a look at that strikeout pitch. He got a little bit higher, I think, than he wanted it.
So the batter now is Harold Baines, who struck out and walked 0 for 1. Fastball hit slowly to 3rd. Brookins charging, picks it up, goes, gets him. And we've got 6 innings where Jack Morris has not allowed a hit. By the way, and especially now, we should look over at first base because Dave Bergman is now at first, taking over for Garbe. And of course, Bergman, recently acquired by Detroit, is one of the better fielding first basemen in the game today. And lined at Bergman, goes to the bag too late. Well, they put him in there for just that, and Dave was there to grab it.
Didn't have a chance, Vin, but he was playing behind the runner Lazinski because Lazinski no speed at all, and as you can see, not even much of a lead because he couldn't be doubled off at first base. So Sparky's defensive move paid off. The fact that he also had him behind the base runner was a factor.
Now, Greg Walker is going to come in to hit. Walker will bat for Vance Law. Little number wide of first. Bergman fields, flips to Morris in time, and we got it going now. Jack Morris has not allowed a hit for 7 innings. And at the end of 7 in Comiskey Park, Detroit 4, White Sox nothing. Ground ball, backhanded by Bergman to Morris. Boy, I told you he's a dandy. And he just came in the game and he has saved Morris Bacon again.
That's a tough play, and he gets in front of it. He backhanded it, but that leg was right there. He would have been able to knock it down. And again, Morris, the good athlete, gets over there. Look at the determination on his face. He's going to get there in plenty of time if he's going to have a play, and he did, and there's one away.
And so Jack Morris is 5 outs away. And here is Julio Cruz, who struck out and grounded out. 0 for 2. Comebacker to Morris, to Bergman, and he has 4 outs to go. Fastball hit to Bergman. Dave beating Morris, and Jack Morris is 3 outs away. And even the White Sox fans now are responding and reacting, and they are on their feet. At the end of 8, 4-0 Detroit and Jack Morris. Fisk struck out, walked, and struck out again. Morris has struck out 7 while walking 5. Squirted to Bergman right at the bag. 1 away. And now even the White Sox fans are cheering for Morris. Harold Baines will be coming up. Baines struck out, walked, and was out on a good play by Tommy Brooken. Comebacker knocked down by Morris, and he's got 1 out to go. And he takes a little walk, and you can understand it. He doesn't want to do anything in a hurry. A good thing he flagged it. That ball might have found its way up the middle. Morris is 6'3", and here is Greg Luzinski. Wide to center, hit into a double play and walk. 1 out away from a no-hitter. Ball 1. And he's pressing a little bit. 2-0, trying to get a little something extra. Pitching beyond himself now. 2-0 the count. Ground foul outside of third. And the count 2-1. Jack Morris, 28 years old. He'll be 29 in May. 6'3", 200-pounder, a professional since 1976, and he's been with Detroit since 1977. 2-1. And now he is 1 strike away. And the tension becomes somewhat excruciating even in the dugout. Deuce is wild. And he falls down. He was trying so hard. He is not pitching right now. He's throwing. The emotion has gotten to him. Who can blame him? Two. Ball 4, and the Tigers thought surely it was strike 3, but they might have been looking at the pitch with their hearts instead of their eyes. watch it again. Parrish thought surely that was the game. Watch Morris. Can't believe it. But believe it he must now, as he walks his 6th batter. He has walked 6, struck out 7. Ron Kittle has popped up, struck out, flied to right, and we will have a runner coming into the game. It'll be Dave Stegman running for Luzinski. Kittle struck out with the tying runs at 2nd and 3rd, and 2 out in the 4th inning. Infield back, outfield very deep and straight away. Ball 1. The only time it appeared as if Morris was really tasting the no-hitter was when he was pitching to Luzinski, trying too hard. 1-0 to Kittle. That was a great pitch because he took something off it, and Kittle was anxious, and the change was perfectly executed. 1 ball, 1 strike. Fastball fouled away. So after the change, he came back and again 1 pitch. He had a 2-2 to Luzinski and then walked him. And he is 1-2 to Kittle. Swinging, and he has his no-hitter.
In Detroit, every fan was treated to a picture that was close to perfect as the powerful Tigers continued to pounce on everybody. Lance Parrish kept a tie game going in extra innings of the opener against visiting Cleveland. But in the top of the 19th inning, the Indians broke through. The Tribe scored 4 times to hand Detroit only its 2nd loss against 16 wins. But in Game 2, the Demons from Detroit struck back with a force. Jack Morris was once more a master, going all the way and striking out 5 on a 3-hitter. The Cat already had a no-hitter this year, and he's gone 9 innings in 4 of his 6 starts to compile an ERA under 2. The win over Cleveland gave Morris a 5-0 start, his best ever. In the finale, Detroit was again blessed with good pitching and good hitting. Kirk Gibson got his 3rd game-winning hit, going 3 for 4 with 3 runs batted in. Trammell continued to ramble. At least 1 hit in each game and eventually a streak of 18, plus a batting average above 400, 2nd best in the league. Dan Petrie supplied the pitching, improving his record to 3-1 with 7 strikeouts in 8 innings. Baffled the Indians with a no-hitter through 7 innings, but his bid was broken up by George Vukovich with 2 outs in the 8th. No Detroit fan could quibble, though, as the Tigers remained great. Soaring above them all were the Detroit Tigers, who came to Cleveland and stayed on the warpath. With a 25-4 start, Detroit could do no wrong, while Cleveland had trouble doing it right. The Tigers even made misplays into great plays. Detroit buried the Indians with 21 runs on 35 hits in a 3-game sweep. Also dusted off the Indians from the mound with some strong relief. Willie Hernandez earned his 3rd save this season. In the series, Hernandez worked 7 innings and struck out 6. Aurelio Lopez got his 3rd win and 3rd save as the rip-roaring Tigers won their 14th road game without a loss. American League hoopla. The wins came in waves for 34-5 Detroit, tying Washington's league record, 16 straight on the road.
When September comes, we'll be there. Now, there ain't no ifs, ands, or buts about it. When September lands, Detroit Tigers will be in a race. I don't know whereabouts we'll be. I think we'll be very close, either leading or be right on somebody's heels. But we're a good baseball team. Everybody, that's the one thing they want to understand about this team.
We understand this, Sparky. The Tigers are deep. Take Rusty Kuntz, for example, 4 for 8 in 2 games against Seattle, with 3 runs driven in and 5 runs scored. Nothing to it, but a whole lot to Johnny Grubb's pinch hit performance against the Mariners. Going, and that ball is long gone. Additional evidence of Tiger power off the bench. So is reserve catcher Dwight Lowry, who filled in ably against Oakland with his first Major League home run when Detroit took 3 from the A's for its 10th series sweep this year. How about that? Want more? Well, how about Marty Castillo, who played 3rd base in a game against Oakland and delivered a run-scoring single? No wonder almost every Tiger opponent has been bewildered, bothered, and bewitched. Regulars like Lance Parrish have helped Detroit compile a team batting average above 300. Parrish went 4 for 6 in 2 games against the A's with 2 RBIs and his 3rd game winner. Dan Petrie is part of an overpowering 1-2-3 Tiger pitching punch. Petrie jumped off to a 7-1 record. Jack Morris also got a win against the A's to go 8-1, the first 8-game winner in the majors this year. Milt Wilcox was undefeated at 6-0, giving the Tiger trio a remarkable 21-2 start this season. Everybody was pitching in as Detroit continued to demolish records for best starts in Major League history.
1 week ago tonight, the Detroit Tigers took on the Toronto Blue Jays on the season premiere of Monday Night Baseball with Tiger shortstop Alan Trammell in the thick of the action. In the 7th inning, with Toronto leading 3-0, Howard Johnson came to the plate, hit a 3-run homer into the right field foul pole screen to tie the game. The game then moved to the bottom of the 10th inning. Dave Bergman was the batter, and the crowd was looking for a hero.
I need a hero. I'm holding on for a hero till the end of the night. He's gotta be strong, and he's gotta be fast, and he's gotta be fresh from the fight. I need a hero. I'm holding on for a hero till the end of the night.
The plea was answered when Bergman hit that home run on the 13th pitch after fouling off 7 straight, hitting one into the upper deck to give Detroit the win in the exciting beginning of Monday Night Baseball for '84. Same 2 clubs tonight. Dave Collins is on deck.
How tough it is to get that last out.
But he gets it, and the Tigers lead by 8.
Motor City Mania. Detroit stayed in the driver's seat, running over Milwaukee by turning it on and cranking it up. The Brewers were deafened by Detroit blasts at the plate. Tigers in overdrive, stripping their gears with the pedal to the metal. So steer clear, because this crew is all revved up and lapping the pack. In the finale, Rupert Jones shifted one out of park with a crash. Detroit was also burning the rubber. Jack Morris raced off with win number 12 to set the big league pace, number 100 of his career. Oh, man, what a first-place Tiger machine. In Kansas City, the sign pointed to success against New York because the Royals made their usual point of getting relief from Dan Quisenberry. KC skipper Dick Hauser just loves to give opponents the quiz. Dan got 2 saves against the Yankees and then continued on to a major league leading total of 22. Man, that quiz is a real whiz. But 21-year-old rookie Mark Gubicza didn't need a quiz. He struck out 6 and passed a complete game test to mark win number 5. Royal applause for Kansas City bats as well. Former Yankee Steve Balboni smacked the home run against his former teammates. 1 of 9 home runs in 12 games to give him 14 for the year. Don Slaught led the onslaught, 7 for 11 with hits in every game, plus 4 runs batted in and 2 game winners. Willie Wilson had 5 RBIs in the series, and get this, including only the 4th of his 17 career home runs to clear a fence, as the Royals took all 3 games. In Kansas City, the Royals glittered when they took 3 out of 4 to send the Birds from Baltimore into a tumble. Don Slaught has been slaughtering Oriole pitching this year. 2 4-for-4 games raised his season average against the O's to .457, compared to a .260 average overall. Greg Pryor went 7 for 15 against the O's. He scored 5 times, and he drove in 3 runs. Not bad for a man who spent much of his career as a reserve.
It's a relief knowing you come in the park and knowing if you're going to be playing, because you can prepare for it. In my career, I've been filling in for the last 4 years, so I'm accustomed to not knowing, but it is easier knowing because I can prepare that way.
Leadoff man Willie Wilson was 9 for 19 with a game winner and 3 steals. Yes, sir, he sure resumed his role as the man who makes the Royals go.
I feel that I'm getting a lot better right now. I'm starting to get more in shape, and I'm starting to do a lot of things that Willie Wilson's able to do. If I can do what I can do, then I'm going to help the team out a great deal.
Royal pitchers also put the Orioles on ice. 21-year-old rookie Mark Gubicza went all the way for win number 6. Larry Gura, senior man on the staff at 36, also tops the team in wins, notching number 10 in the series. Dan Quisenberry got save number 25 to lead the majors and lower his ERA to 2.45. All in a day's work for the mercurial Mr. Quiz.
I'm expected to do the things that I've done the first half, and I expect that of myself also. So it's the basic 9 to 5 and do what you're supposed to do kind of thing.
It all pointed to a royal rejuvenation. Kansas City sitting pretty after a 4-game sweep in Detroit. Pat Sheridan showed the way, hitting .444 in the series with a home run and 4 RBIs, including game winners number 8 and 9, helping the Royals charge back into contention in the West.
This division's up for grabs, really, and hopefully the way we played the last month, we've been improving. We've got a lot of good young pitchers, Mark Guzza, Brett Saberhagen, they're pitching very well, and the hitting's coming around. We're getting some timely hits, and we're winning on the road, and if we can just improve our home record, we're going to be in the race up to the end.
Onyx Concepcion also contributed big, going 9 for 16 against Detroit and driving in 3 runs. Man alive, KC was clicking. 27 runs on 50 hits in the 4 games. Made some special deliveries as designated hitter, batting almost .500 in the series and scoring 4 times. Dane Orridge went 3 for 9 and a doubleheader, had a game-winning hit and 3 runs driven in. Second baseman Frank White belted 2 home runs for a total of 12. 1 more than his previous career high for an entire season, and that complemented his rock-steady defense.
6 gold gloves for Frank White, that speaks for itself. Also, the fact that Frank's been an RBI guy, he'll get his 65, 70, 75 RBIs a season, so not only does he save you runs with his glove, but he's knocked a lot of big runs in over the years.
The Tigers appeared more like kittens when they were declawed by Dan Quisenberry, who saved 2 games and had a major league leading total of 30, including 18 in as many chances. And the Royals won 13 out of 17 overall to move just 3.5 games out of first. American League gathering. No picnic for Kansas City when Detroit paid a 3-game visit. Rupert Jones unlocked a 4-4 tie in the opener with a game-winning pinch hit home run in the 8th inning. Willie Hernandez came on to wrap up save number 25, 3rd in the league. The Tigers tapped out another victory in Game 2. Alan Trammell was a tough out, totaling 4 for 5, including a run batted in and hitting .571 overall in the series. Kirk Gibson connected on his 2nd home run in 2 days to give him 19 this year, along with 65 RBIs. Jack Morris won only his 3rd game since the All-Star break, but it made him the first pitcher in the league to win 15. Teammate Dan Petrie later won his 15th. Aurelio Lopez locked up save number 12 and got the win in the opener for a spotless 10-0 mark. Detroit came out smoking again in Game 3. Rupert Jones slammed his 2nd home run of the series to cap a 4-run first inning. Milt Wilcox earned the win to go 12-7 as Detroit swept the series. The Tigers have played at less than a .580 clip since the All-Star break, almost 100 points below their torrid first half pace, but still good enough to remain virtually uncatchable in the East.
Meanwhile, in the AL West, there was no clear front-runner.
The AL West wasn't very strong. The American League East was the powerhouse. If you looked at the records, there were probably 3 or 4 teams in the American League East that had a better record than anyone in the West.
For much of the first half, it was John McNamara's veteran Angels leading the way, with nearly every starter in the lineup north of 30. None more seasoned than two surefire Hall of Famers, Rod Carew and Reggie Jackson.
He hits that one high and deep. Way back. It's gone.
So without a true frontrunner in the West, the Twins, led by young sluggers Ken Herbeck and Tom Brunansky, and the always dangerous Kansas City Royals, stayed in contention with the Angels for the AL West pennant.
But first up, the pennant races. The tightest one right now and potentially the wildest down the stretch, the American League West. Minnesota lost last night. Both Kansas City and California won, so things tighten up a bit out there. Now, in Anaheim last night, first inning, Reggie Jackson with the base hit to right field. Freddie Lynn comes around to score. DeCinces right behind him. Kirk Gibson's throw, wild at third. Downing scores 3-0 Angels over the Tigers. In the fifth, Freddie Lynn's ground single to right. Gary Pettis scores it. 5-1 Angels. They go on to win 5-3. And in Minnesota, Cliff Johnson for the Blue Jays. Fly ball down the right field line. There's a pinch ground rule double in the eighth. Blue Jays went on to score 3 in the inning en route to a 6-2 Toronto win over the Twins. Blue Jays trail by 11 in the East. And the standings in the American League West starting today, the Twins lead both the Angels and Royals, both by just 4 games. Hi again, everyone, and welcome to the Game of the Week. Len Berman in New York. And suddenly today, there is a tight pennant race underway. A 3-team scramble has developed in the American League West. It came about by Minnesota losing last night and Kansas City and California both winning, so the Twins lead Kansas City by just 2, and they lead the Angels by just 2.5. Last night in Toronto, George Bell hits his 21st homer of the year. That gave Toronto a 7-0 lead in the 7th over Minnesota. For Dave Steve, he went all the way with a 4-hitter. Steve is now 14-5. He struck out 10. Toronto won the game 7-0. In Chicago, here's Willie Wilson with the sweet swing. Tom Pechora can't get it. Wilson scampers all the way to third, eventually scores the tie-breaking run as the Royals beat Chicago by a final of 3-1. And in Anaheim, the Yankees were leading the Angels 3-0. Here's pinch hitter Darryl Sconyers with a double down the right field line. Rob Wilfong scores it. And later in the 7th inning, Juan Beniquez just reaches out. That's the game-winning hit as the Angels beat the Yankees 4-3. Hi again, everyone, and welcome to the Game of the Week. I'm Len Berman. White Sox and Angels coming up in just a few moments. The story in the American League West, both first-place teams lost last night. The Angels won. 3 teams within 1/2 game again. In Texas last night, first inning, and that's former Twin Gary Ward with the 2-run homer to left. And just like that, the Rangers are off and running against Minnesota. They led it 2-0. Now, 7th inning, and Larry Parrish, a 3-run homer as Texas wins it big. Charlie Huff is now 9-0 lifetime against the Twins. Final score, Rangers 9 and the Twins 2. Meanwhile, in Seattle, bottom of the 9th inning, 1 out. Here's rookie Alvin Davis with a game-winning homer. His 26th homer of the year. Seattle beat Kansas City 2-1. And so the Angels picked up a game on both Kansas City and Minnesota. As here in Anaheim, Reggie Jackson, homerless for a month, stuck on 497. And here against Floyd Bannister, a 3-run homer to right, his 498th career home run. The Angels and Jeff Zahn shut out Chicago 5-0, and they trail by just 1/2 game.
American League animation in Detroit, where the Tigers roared to the Eastern Division crown. Lance Parrish provided all the offense needed to nail down the title in a game against Milwaukee, driving home 2 runs and getting his 11th game winner. Detroit dusted off the Brewers behind rookie Randy O'Neal, who threw 7 shutout innings to get the win in his first Major League start. Sparky Anderson called on Willie Hernandez to close it out. And with players and fans alike all set to explode, Hernandez lit the fuse. Jubilation, celebration for a Tiger coronation. Tiger mania saturated Detroit from day one to the clinching. Never out of first, it was a season-long happening.
Hey, life, look at me. I can see the real smile. But when you shook me, took me out of my world, I woke up. Suddenly I just woke up to the happening. When you find that you left the future behind, but when you got a thing that love you don't take care of, then you gotta beware of the happening. When you find that you left the future behind, but when you got a thing that love you don't take care of, then you gotta beware of the happening.
In the West, the Angel halo was set spinning by Kansas City. Pat Sheridan began the Royal assault in the opener with a home run that was good for his 13th game-winning RBI. Kansas City went on to capture 2 out of 3 in California and strengthen their slender hold on first place. The Royals were in Seattle when they took sole possession of the top spot. After dropping game 1, they came back to win the next 2 as Dan Quisenberry tossed 3 shutout innings to collect his league-leading 41st save. Kansas City's lively bats appeared to be moving in perpetual motion. Willie Wilson went 4 for 10 in the first 2 games to keep his average near 300. He also stole his 42nd base and drove home a game-winning run. Steve Balboni's bat was blistering in the series. A home run, a game winner, 4 RBIs, and a .455 average. Charlie Leibrandt earned a win in the finale to go 10-7, and the Royals rolled on, striving for a 6th division title in 9 years.
Now, the story in the American League West, it is still a 3-team race, and all 3 of the contenders won last night. Starting in Kansas City, here is George Brett with the big blow in the bottom of the 7th inning, a grand slam homer for Brett. You know, you would think he'd have more than just 2 career grand slams at this stage of his career. Number 2 for George. Kansas City leads California by half a game. Minnesota in 3rd place, 1 game back of Kansas City. Now, in California, this is Jerry Narron, bottom of the 6th inning, lines a double down the line, scoring Brian Downing and Bobby Grich, tied up the Rangers 4-4. Here's Bobby Grich, gets the shot past 3rd. This is the winning run. Gary Pettis scores it. California beats Texas 5-4. Kurt Kaufman got Marv Foley looking, so California is 1/2 game back. Now at the Metrodome, Ron Washington, bottom of the 1st inning, triples to right. The hot rookie Kirby Puckett scores at 1-0 Minnesota. But here in the bottom of the 1st inning, Kirby Puckett again, the 10th man to bat in the inning, a 6-run 1st inning for Minnesota. They led 6-zip, wound up beating Cleveland 7-3, so Minnesota is the game behind now.
American League up in arms. Kansas City kept writing a first-place story in the West, taking 2 out of 3 from Oakland as George Brett blasted a grand slam. Good for home run number 12 and game winner number 8. Darrell Motley went 3 for 8 in the 2 Royal wins with a double and a triple in 1 game to drive in a pair. The A's were also fit to be tied by Royal pitchers like Bud Black, 17-12, who struck out 7 in 6 innings. Dan Quisenberry got 2 saves in the series to raise his league-leading total to 43. And in Kansas City's next series against California, Quiz earned a win as the Royals took 3 out of 4 to virtually eliminate the Angels from the race. Steve Balboni hammered a big nail in the Angel coffin with a 2-out double in the bottom of the 12th to drive home the winning run as the Royals won 5 out of 6. And since mid-July, a 43-25 mark for the Kansas City comeback crew. In the East, Detroit won its 100th game, with Kirk Gibson contributing home run number 27 to go along with 91 RBIs and a batting average above 280. The Tigers scraped off New York behind the pitching of Jack Morris, who got the win for a 1911 mark, the first 19-game winner in the league this year. The Cat gave way to Willie Hernandez, who got his 32nd save in as many opportunities. Detroit became the first team in 4 years to win 100 games, prompting Tiger fans to chant, the reason, because Sparky Anderson became the first manager in Major League history to win 100 games with 2 different teams, one in each league. Anderson became manager of Cincinnati in 1970, promptly won 102 games before losing the World Series to Baltimore. But he skippered the Big Red Machine to 108 wins in 75 and 102 in 76, winning the championship both years. Sparky was named the Tiger manager in 1979. By the way, both managers of the National League division winners also won pennants in the American League. San Diego's Dick Williams with Boston and Oakland, and Chicago's Jim Fry with Kansas City. How about that for a threesome of skippers supreme? It was a heavenly night in Oakland when Kansas City clinched the Western Division. George Brett started the Royals off right with a home run, number 13 this year. Frank White was also just right, going 3 for 5 and driving in 3, including home run number 17. The charge to the crown was supported on the mound by Dan Quisenberry, who got save number 44 to top the league and put Kansas City atop the West, the Royals' 5th division title in 9 years. In mid-July, Kansas City was 10 games under 500 and in 6th place, but then went 44-25 to clinch it. Man, what a comeback.
This team was buried from spring training on, and it was resurrected tonight, and it's proven to people that with a great organization such as the Royals, you can come back.
Yes, sir, a battle royal.
Sports presents the American League Championship Series from Royal Stadium in Kansas City, Missouri. It's the Eastern Division champion Detroit Tigers against the Western Division champion Kansas City Royals in Game 1. Hello again, everyone. I'm Al Michaels, and welcome to what I think is going to be a much better series than a lot of people anticipate. Sure, if you look at the numbers, it does figure to be a rematch, or a mismatch in the sense that Detroit won 104 games this season, a club record for the Tigers after that tremendous start, 35-5, the best 40-game start in baseball history, and Kansas City won only 84, so a 20-game disparity is the most ever in the history of League Championship Series play. But Sparky Anderson may not be a credentialed historian. However, he remembers very well 1973 when he managed the Cincinnati Reds, who that season won 99 games, and the Mets won only 82. That, to this point, had been the biggest differential. And pitching makes the difference, because in a best-of-5 series, pitching is certainly the great equalizer. And as Sparky says, you go through the regular season, 162 games, it's like a marathon, and then you get into what turns out to be a 100-yard dash. So in that sense, it should be a better series than most people would figure, in light of the fact Kansas City was extremely hot. Detroit, though, played very well, too, after the All-Star break. There's a tendency to feel that the Tigers slacked off. Certainly, they had built up a big early lead, but they did have some pressure, too, because as some of the Tigers put it, had we blown that lead, people would have talked about it forever. But they didn't even come close. They were one of only 3 teams in baseball history to lead from start to finish all the way through the season. They're in tune with the 1923 New York Giants and the 1927 New York Yankees, the last team to do it. So, Detroit and Kansas City, Game 1. Let's meet the players. Right now, let's go to the public address announcer at Royal Stadium, Jack Layton.
Trainers Pio DeSalvo and Bill Beam. Equipment Manager Jim Schmeichel. In the bullpen, pitching coach Roger Craig. Coach Gates Brown. Coach Billy Consolo. Coach Alex Dramas. Coach Dick Krasuski. And now the rest of the Tigers. Infielder Doug Baker. Infielder Dave Bergman. Outfielder Rusty Kuntz. Infielder Tom Brooken. Pitcher Bill Shear. Pitcher Dave Roseman. Infielder Howard Johnson. Pitcher Willie Hernandez. Pitcher Aurelio Lopez. Outfielder John Grubb. Outfielder Rupert Jones. Pitcher Milt Wilcox. Pitcher Doug Bear. Pitcher Juan Berenguer. Pitcher Dan Petrie. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here is the starting lineup for the Eastern Division champions, the Detroit Tigers. Here's the Tigers manager, Sparky Anderson. Leading off, the second baseman, Lou Whitaker. Batting second, the shortstop, Alan Trammell. Batting third, the right fielder, Kurt Gibson. Batting fourth, the catcher, Lance Parrish. Hitting fifth, the left fielder, Larry Herndon. Batting sixth, the designated hitter, Barbaro Garbe. Batting seventh, the center fielder, Chet Lemon. Hitting eighth, the first baseman, Darrell Evans. Batting ninth, the third baseman, Marty Castillo. Pitching for the Tigers, warming up in the bullpen, Jack Morris.
Game winner, Lance Parrish, his catcher, talks about Morris.
Well, I'll tell you, Jack, in my opinion, has the ability to be the best pitcher in the game. He has got overpowering stuff. He is, in my mind, probably one of the fastest pitchers consistently as far as velocity on his fastball. I would say the last two games that he's pitched, he's probably been clocked somewhere in the middle 90s consistently. He's got a very good split-fingered pitch. He's been working on a new breaking ball, which Roger has been helping him out with, and he's been throwing that real well.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, here are the Royals trainers, Mickey Cobb and Paul McGannon, plus equipment manager Al Zeek. Here are the Royals coaches. In the bullpen, pitching coach Jim Schaefer. Coach Lee May. Coach Mike Ferraro. Coach Jose Martinez. Coach Gary Blaylock. And Coach Howie Bedell. And now, Let's meet the members of the 1984 Kansas City Royals. Infielder Buddy Biancalana. Infielder Greg Pryor. Outfielder Dane Ford. Outfielder Hal McRae. Catcher John Watson. Pitcher Mike Jones. Pitcher Mark Gubasaw. Pitcher Joe Beckwith. Pitcher Dan Quisenberry. Infielder UL Washington. Pitcher Brett Saberhagen. Pitcher Larry Dura. Outfielder Lynn Jones. Pitcher Charlie Liebrandt. Pitcher Mark Huseman. And now the starting lineup for your Kansas City Royals. Here's the Royals manager, Dick Hauser. Leading off, the center fielder, Willie Wilson. Batting second, the right fielder, Pat Sheridan. Batting third, the third baseman, George Brett. Batting fourth, the designated hitter, George Horta. Hitting fifth, the left fielder, Darryl Motley. Batting sixth, the first baseman, Steve Balboni. Batting seventh, the second baseman, Frank White. Hitting eighth, the catcher, Don Slaught. Batting ninth, the shortstop, Onyx Concepcion. Pitching for the Royals and warming up in the bullpen, Bud Black. Ladies and gentlemen, an invitation to stand and salute the colors as presented by the Air Force Color Guard from Whiteman Air Force Base. Now to honor America. Let's all join the lettermen as they sing our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight for the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
On a perfect early autumn night in Kansas City, temperature 65 degrees. We're ready for Game 1 of the American League Championship Series, the Tigers and the Royals.
Baseball fever. Catch it.
The preceding message was furnished by Major League Baseball.
You're in the big leagues now. Royals baseball. Something special in the air.
Ladies and gentlemen, we direct your attention to the pitcher's mound for tonight's ceremonial first pitch, which will be thrown by a member of the Royals family, the Royals co-owner, Avron Fogelman. Mr. Fogelman, fire away when you're ready, sir. Thank you, Mr. Fogelman. And now let's play ball.
Very quickly, Commissioner Peter Ubroth, Richie Phillips, counsel of the Umpires Union, said earlier he thinks your duty to step into this thing. You're a stand-up guy. Are you going to? I'm talking about the strike.
I'm going to back up the two presidents of the leagues. They're doing their best, and they're doing a good job. The umpires are well represented by Richie. Both presidents, Shub Feeney and Dr. Brown, I've been working for 3 months. I'm not going to come in and push people aside at my second day on the job. The issue is a very clear issue. Evidently, they want pay for the umpires who are not working the postseason. Well, okay, that's an issue. Should they be paid? I think the umpires, I hope they get back out there because they make this game. But there's a work ethic in this country, and if you don't work, you shouldn't be paid.
All right, just as quickly, at what point would you intercede?
I don't know, Howard. It's certainly not the second day, maybe farther on. Baseball is an important part of the fabric of the society, and these are going to be a great series, championships and then World Series, and we'd like to have those umpires back out there.
Directly, would you ever seek to break the union the way the air traffic controllers were broken?
No, I put on the Olympic Games by working with labor. We had them throughout every single part. Everything was labor, and they cooperated with us. They made us successful, and so my hat's off to them. No, I would never do that.
Thank you very much, Peter. Again, congratulations on the miracle of Los Angeles. Good luck.
My pleasure. Take care.
Now, quickly to Al Michaels.
All right, Howard, everybody knows that the Cubs won today, and there are the totals. Chicago routs San Diego 13-0 at Wrigley Field. Gary Matthews hitting 2 of the Cubs' 5 home runs. Steve Balboni, as we look at the Royals defensively, came over in a deal with the Yankees, and it turned out to be a very good one for Kansas City. Frank White, who knows what it's like to play in the playoffs and World Series, at second base. Then Onyx Concepcion had a very good second half of the season, coming back from a broken hand at shortstop. And George Brett had an off year at the plate, but George Brett is particularly dangerous in postseason situations. Darryl Motley is in left field. He's completing his first full season in the majors. Willie Wilson started the year in prison. He was suspended. He was reinstated on the 16th of May, and here he is in the playoffs in center field. And Pat Sheridan, who is from the Detroit area, is in right. Back of the plate is Don Slaught, who platooned with John Watson last year and then took over as the everyday catcher in 1984. And the pitcher is Bud Black. Kansas City, with their championship teams, you go back and think about people like Dennis Leonard, Paul Splittorff, Larry Gura. Last year, Vida Blue was part of the rotation, and there are the umpires. But none of those fellas figure right now. The umpires, you saw the umpires who would have worked, who said tonight, Bill Deegan. And if that name sounds familiar, if you're a baseball fan, he worked in the American League for 10 years. He, Randy Crystal, Larry Zerbel, John Bible, Harold Jordan, and Mike Odell are the 6 umpires as we get set for game 1, and Lou Whitaker leads off by running up to bunt and missing for a strike. 0-1 the count. Whitaker to be followed by Trammell and Gibson here in the first inning. Brett playing in very shallow at third, and Bud Black ready to work with a count 0-1 as Whitaker pops it up in foul ground down the line. Concepcion and Brett are chasing it, but it lands in the first row and skips back into the seats. So the count 0-2. George Brett started the season on the disabled list, had arthroscopic knee surgery, injured himself the last day of spring training, did not come back until May 18th, and then missed several games down the stretch because of a torn hamstring. So he's just getting back to 100% right now. No balls, 2 strikes the count on the American League's all-star second baseman, who takes low, 1-2.
And of course, one of the reasons he's an all-star second baseman, great range, great hands, but he has the ability as a leadoff hitter. And we saw in Chicago, they were talking today about Bob Dernier. Lou Whitter can make the work, can get on base and set the table.
Outside. When Whitaker first came up, he didn't have any power at all. In his first 4 years, he had a total of 12 home runs, but he began to muscle up, and he's hit 40 in the last 3, including 13 this year. And the 2-2 to him is taken high for ball 3. 3-2.
Well, Al, Lou Whitaker is a situation hitter as far as hitting the long ball. You get behind 3-1, 2-0, especially in Detroit, which is a great hitting ballpark. Whether you're right-handed or left-handed, you'll get that pitch out over the plate and lose it.
Line drive, base hit into right center field. So it's Whitaker aboard. And up comes a man who might handle a bat as well as anybody in a hit-and-run situation in the American League. Alan Trammell.
Alan Trammell, shortstop.
Just a 3-2 fastball trying to throw a strike. You don't want to walk the leadoff batter. Whitaker just kind of pings it over White's head into right center for a base hit.
There was some question as to whether Alan Trammell could play defensively in the second half of the season. He went on the disabled list in July. Was hurt his shoulder just prior to the All-Star game, and that cost him an appearance in San Francisco. But he was able to come back and play shortstop in August after spending 3 weeks as a designated hitter.
Since you brought it up, Al, he is, as you know, questionable in the throwing area. The advanced scouting report on him saying you hit it in the hole, he'll not be able to throw the runner out. He scoffs at that notion.
Throw to first base. Bud Black, by the way, when he first came up, was called for a lot of balks. And that brings up an interesting situation here with the umpires, the amateur umpires. Will they call balks? Another throw to first base. Or will they be less or more inclined, Jim, in your estimation?
I think they'd be less inclined. There are a lot of American League umpires that don't want the left-hander to have that advantage. You don't want it. I mean, the whole rule is deceive the runner.
Black has one of the best pickoff moves in the league. Picked
well,
11 men.
Exactly. And what he is doing is not only keeping the runner close, but if you get off too far, he's going to pick you off.
2-2 to Trammell. Hit to deep left field. Motley going all the way back, and it's up against the fence and rolling back on the tartan turf. Whitaker comes in to score. Trammell's going for third. The throw is offline, and the Tigers lead 1-0. Alan Trammell hitting it over the head of Darryl Motley, directly over his head, and winds up with a triple. And Detroit has a man at third with nobody out and a 1-0 lead.
Right field.
What a pair to open for you, huh?
There you see the ball going over. Tough play if he gets back. Of course, Trammell does have good power, but you're not expecting him to hit the ball off the wall off a guy like Black, who we said in the opening has been pitching extremely well. But what has happened? He ran the count to 3-2 in Whitaker and had to come in. 2 balls, 2 strikes on Trammell, and threw him a good pitch right in the middle of the plate.
Here is Gibson now, and the infield, with the exception of Brett, is playing back. So they'll give up a run on a ground ball with Detroit on top 1-0. And Kirk Gibson coming into his own this season.
Certainly is. When he got the break so that Sparky stopped platooning him because his alter ego was injured, he began to hit southpaws with reasonable authority. Earlier, he had been platooned against.
Last year, Gibson hit only 150 against left-handed pitching, but going back to the strike season, he destroyed them in 81, hitting 366. So he used to be able to hit them, and then he stopped hitting them, and then this year Anderson left him in every day after a while. And Gibson has played in more games than any other Tiger, and for the first time in his major league career, he has been relatively free of injury. 2-2.
There you saw that little slider that Black has. He got behind Gibson. The first 2 hitters, he threw him fastballs, a single and a triple. There he came back with a slider. Gibson took it for strike 2. Something he's going to have to do to be effective.
He drops down, and Gibson on a soft hand swing, hits it to Brett at third, and Trammell has to hold. So Kirk gets fooled as Bud Black dropped down to get him. A big out, one away.
Just a little slider. Gibson, not a very good swing. Hit right to Brett. Easy play.
One down, and Lance Parrish is the batter. His average low, but as you can tell, 33 home runs. That's a career high, coming off last year when he had 32, and 98 runs batted in. The infield is up on the right side. Concepcion is back. As we pan left, Onyx will give up a run on the grounder to him, and Brett is just back of the bag at third. Outfield plays him to pull. Parrish hits it high in the air to deep right center, certainly deep enough to score a run. Sheridan races over and makes a great catch. It'll be a sacrifice fly to make it 2-0. Great play by Pat Sheridan, who went a long way to haul in the drive by Parrish. That's a home run in a lot of ballparks.
It sure is. This is a vast ballpark. I think it's the prettiest ballpark in the league.
Sheridan going about as far as he can go, as you said, without having to look up over the fence, something we saw in Chicago all day. Fine running catch. Not afraid of the wall.
But Parrish doing his job. Although the batting average fell terribly this year into the 230s. He had the 33 home runs, better than 90 runs batted in, but still the big man. Herndon fell in the home run and RBI department this year, but Sparky believes in him, has never wavered in playing.
1 ball, 1 strike on Herndon, who came over to Detroit from the Giants 3 years ago, hit 43 home runs in his first 2 seasons, and just 7 this year.
That's one of the interesting things about the Tigers' outstanding start. They basically did it without Larry Herndon. The guy, as you said, has been really a dominant hitter for him. Can steal some bases for you, can hit for the average, as he hit over 300 last year, over 20 home runs.
And he terrorized left-handers this year, hitting .317 against lefties, .233 against righties. What it's amounted to of late is that Rupert Jones is platooning with Herndon.
Well, he's a story in and of himself. We'll get to him later.
Probably tomorrow night, in fact.
Maybe.
The right-hander goes for Kansas City. 2-2 to Herndon. Fouled away. Detroit in postseason play for the first time in 12 years. The last time the Tigers were in the league championship series, in fact, the only time since the leagues went to this format, was 1972 when they lost to Oakland in 5. For Kansas City, though, it's become a regular occurrence. The Royals in the playoffs for the 5th time in 9 years. Ball, strike 3 to Herndon.
No indecision on Bill Deegan. Did you see that, Jim? Unlike the opening inning today.
Well, just a high slider. Herndon doesn't think it's a strike. But when you have that outside protector, as we see with Bill Deegan, you get that high strike. Strike 3.
After a half, it's Detroit 2, and the Royals coming up. Tigers, a very loose group coming in on top 2-0. Yesterday, Howard asked Sparky Anderson if the Tigers were maybe a little bit overconfident coming into the playoffs.
No, because my kids have never been to this, all but about 3 of them. They've never been to a World Series. They're awed by the whole thing. They love it. I think they're going to play well, Howard, but I don't believe they're thinking about the records between the two. I think they're thinking that Kansas City's an object that they must remove. And knowing Gibson, he'd do anything to remove him. He might run right over somebody, but it's an object there that gets them to the greatest thrill that they'll ever have in their lifetime. I think that they're going to play hard and respect Kansas City, but play extremely well.
Sparky Anderson has managed Detroit since '79, and he sends defensively Darrell Evans to first base. Free agent came over from the Giants. Lou Whitaker at second. He has been teaming up with Alan Trammell. from their minor league days back in the mid-70s. Trammell at shortstop, and at third base, a bit of a surprise, Marty Castillo has started only 14 games at third this season. We'll get into that situation as we move along. Larry Herndon is in left. In center field, a man who gets as good a jump as any center fielder in baseball on a fly ball. That's Chet Lemon, all-star center fielder for the American League. And Kirk Gibson, who many Tigers feel might be this team's MVP, is in right. Back of the plate is Lance Parrish. Sparky was able to rest him from time to time and keep in the lineup as well this year by inserting him as a DH. And Jack Morris is the pitcher. If they had voted for the Cy Young Award through about the second week of June, Morris would have been a lock. He got off to that kind of start. He wound up with 19 wins and 11 losses. In his second start of the season, Morris pitched a no-hitter. It was one of two in the American League this season. He pitched it against Chicago, the other being the perfect game pitched by Mike Witt on an inopportune day for Witt. If you're going to pitch a perfect game, don't do it in a meaningless game on a Sunday, the final day of the year, and have football bury you in the sports section.
Do it against Kansas City when it counts.
Well, congratulations to Mike Witt, only
exactly.
the 13th
Don't take it away from him. This has to be one of the most remarkable stories in contemporary baseball. No question about it.
Willie Wilson, and it really parallels, Howard, this entire story in terms of the franchise here. The fact they felt they had to undergo a transition type of season after the drug scandal. The Royals appear to be on their way to rock bottom last winter. And instead, here they are in the playoffs as Wilson takes a strike.
Just a matter of some of their young players maturing. But I think it's something you have to note that they really did not start playing well till Brett came back and Willie Wilson.
Without Wilson, while he was suspended, the Royals were 12-20, to give you some idea as to what he means. They were 8 under and wound up 6 over with an 84-78 final mark.
Well, when he gets on, he just changes the whole complexion of the game for a pitcher.
Covered a short. Trammell has to hurry his throw, and he's on target for the out. Put away.
It wasn't into the hole, but it was still evidence of the retention of the quick release.
Number 15.
Well, here you just see a high chopper on AstroTurf with Willie Wilson running. You know, if you're Alan Trammell, you got to hurry. And you just see the snap throw. He's always had the most accurate arm I've ever seen a shortstop have. And there's a perfect example of it.
Including Belanger?
Including Belanger. Mark Belanger may have had more range and better hands, but I haven't seen a shortstop that could throw with Alan Trammell.
26-year-old Pat Sheridan, who made that nice play in the first inning, looks at a strike on the inside corner. Sheridan has just spent his first full season in the majors, as has Motley in left. We talked about the young pitchers. It was the first year for Don Slaught as an everyday catcher. Hauser has really done a job here. Morris bouncing it to the backstop, and the count is 1-1. Dick Hauser, what he's looking for tonight is his first ever postseason victory. He managed the Yankees in 1980 and got swept by the Royals in 3. And then in the late unlamented divisional playoffs, which were put in place because of the strike in 81, he lost the divisional playoffs to Oakland in 3. 1-2 the count. Jack Morris, as durable and as consistent really as any pitcher in the American League now for the last 5 years. Strike Sheridan out, and there are 2 down here in the bottom of the first inning.
96-mile-per-hour range. That's a power pitcher.
Well, it certainly is, Howard. That's on the Jugs gun, which is a little bit faster than some of the other conservative guns they use. But when you're throwing 96 miles per hour and you're George Brett or you're Pat Sheridan, you better get the bat going. And that makes that breaking ball. And Morris has got an excellent slider, and he's got that split-fingered fastball, so you just can't sit on one pitch.
Batter is George Brett, who for the first time since 1978 hit under 300. 0-1 the count. Brett again starting the year on the disabled list. George has been hurt a lot. If you go back over his record through the past few years, even though his average has always been high, and you think about that incredible year in 1980, he has not been particularly durable in the sense that he spends a lot of time on the disabled list and misses several games for injuries.
That's true. Even now, as you can see, he's hit Morris very well throughout his career. Even now, he's fighting a hamstring problem.
He tore it.
Rested the past few days, and he says he'll be agile tonight. We'll see. What a hitter, though.
Yep. 2-1 the count.
Picture perfect.
It's not a bad off year when you hit 284 and you miss about 2 months and you still hit 13 home runs and drive in 69.
Well, something to note about George Brett, as a guy that pitched against him for years and did not have a whole lot of success, when he expands the strike zone, in other words, swings at bad pitches, he's not a particularly tough out. But when he makes you throw strikes, get the ball in the strike zone, that's when George is the type of guy that's going to hit 390 like he did back in 1980.
What can you tell about, on that subject, what can you tell about Deegan so far? How big is his strike zone?
Well, I've always felt Bill Deegan was the pitcher's umpire. When I pitched, he was the type of guy that, and you can see the outside protector. Most of the American League umpires have gone with the inside one. He gives you the high strike. When you get the high strike and you have a rising fastball like like Morris, you want to take advantage of that. But he did miss. He threw an excellent split-fingered fastball, which Morris thought was a strike, and he didn't give him a low strike. So I think the one thing that I noticed in today's game in Chicago, if you're a hitter or a pitcher, all you want from an umpire is consistency, and it was not.
It was erratic.
Very erratic.
Erratic strike zone.
Right from the first pitch of the game, you could tell. That's called strike 3, and Brett will put up no argument. That was right there. He got fooled by the speed of it as Morris took a little something off it. In super slow motion from back of the plate, watching the rotation of the ball.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 1984 American League.
And George Brett watches it go by. No doubt about that call. Professional or amateur umpires or any umps. That's strike 3. We go to the second. Detroit 2, Kansas City nothing. Royal Stadium, Kansas City. Here's what Dick Hauser had to say about the man on the mound for the Royals tonight, Bud Black.
Number 27.
I've liked Blackie since they got him. Bud Black came over here from Seattle, and I liked him. We brought him aboard. He was kind of a relief pitcher starter. He came a long way last year. We decided in spring training this year that we'd make Bud Black the #1 pitcher on this staff because of the way he pitched last year. He'd earned it last year. He showed that he can be a #1 pitcher on any staff in baseball.
And he is the ace of the staff right now, Bud Black, who would also pitch a 5th game the way Hauser has this rotation set up. Hauser's going to go with, at the moment anyway, 4 different pitchers, while Anderson will just use his big 3 of Morris, Petrie, and Wilcox. Barbaro Garbe is the batter, and the 2-0 pitch is lifted in the air to left field, and an easy play for Darryl Motley. 1 away here in the second inning, and the batter will be Chet Lemon.
Interesting thing about the pitching matchup tonight, though Black did have a shaky first inning. First half of the season, clearly the best pitcher in the league was Jack Morris. Second half of the season, the best pitcher in the league was Bud Black, just inverted. But in Morris's last 3 starts, he pitched as well as he ever had, according to Lance Parrish.
Chet Lemon had a fine year, half swing, and it's in there anyway for a strike. Chet starting the All-Star game in San Francisco, 3rd year with Detroit. Steve Kemp was looking for a way out 3 years ago, you'll recall, so they wound up dealing him to Chicago for Lemon. 0-2 the count.
How do you like that?
He's batted in black and blue. 8 for 15.
Black and blue?
I didn't say that.
No, I hope not. The reason for that, of course, is Lemon has hit left-handers so far superior than right-handers. Dives into the ball.
At that time, it ran in on him, and down goes Chet Lemon. Strikeout number 2 for Bud Black.
Remember how every year Earl Weaver, as we look at this again, Black, by the way, his clock top speed 91, as against Morris, who gets up to the 98 point. Remember how Earl Weaver every year thought he was going to steal Chet Lemon away?
Well, I think Earl's always been a great judge of talent. And once Paul Blair left, it didn't take a whole lot of judge of talent to see that Chet Lemon was the type of guy you'd like to have every day out in center field.
Darrell Evans takes inside. He was the most sought-after free agent last year after playing out his option with San Francisco. Drafted by 18 clubs. And he picked Detroit and takes a strike on the inside corner. Evans is playing first base tonight. He'll play third base against left-handed or against right-handed pitching. So you'll see him moving around the infield during the series, and the Tigers have also used him as a DH off times this year.
Really kind of had the year that he normally has. If you look at his career, he's averaged somewhere around 15, 16 home runs, and 16 home runs is not a bad year.
To left field, and DeMotley makes the catch to retire the side. So Bud Black got off to a shaky start, is on his way to settling down, and we'll go to the bottom of the second with the Tigers in Game 1 leading the Royals 2-0 in Kansas City.
In Game 1 of the National League Championship Series, Rick Sutcliffe beat the Padres on the mound and at the plate. A 13-0 defeat has San Diego looking for revenge. Tomorrow, live at 2 Eastern.
Jack Morris missed a couple of starts in mid-year with a tender elbow, and discussed that situation with Howard Cosell yesterday.
Well, I did. I had a little tendonitis in my right elbow. It's kind of like a tennis elbow, I guess, what they call it. But that's all gone right now, and my last 3 starts is as well as I've pitched over the course of the whole second half. So I really feel positive going into the last game.
Jack Morris, who set the side down in order, goes to work on Kansas City in the bottom of the second inning. Just to set the schedule for this series for you, it's a best of 5, first to win 3. Tonight and tomorrow here in Kansas City. Day off on Thursday, and then to Detroit. Game 3 Friday. Game 4, if necessary, on Saturday, and then a 5th and deciding game, if necessary, would be played on Sunday at Tiger Stadium. George Orta looks at his strike as we start the bottom of the second. He'll be followed by Motley and Balboni.
How'd you pitch this guy, Jim? When he first came up, I thought he had potential to lead the league in batting. He's a
Well, he's an
solid
excellent hitter. Very short swing, as you can see.
To left field and deep, but it's a big ballpark as Herndon circles and makes the catch.
Howard, if you're going to try to pitch Orta consistently, what you would like to do is pitch him up and in.
Al Kaline, one of the most significant people in this whole city. I don't mean just on a baseball basis, I mean off the playing field. And his relationship with Kirk Gibson is a matter of documented history. He has made Kirk into the ball player he's already become.
Hall of Famer Al Kaline, now a Tiger broadcaster, and also as
out of a Baltimore high school.
Yep, he worked.
Got his 3,000 hit in Baltimore off Dave McNally.
Working with Gibson mentally as well as physically this spring.
Off McNally, huh?
Off Dave McNally. Late in September. Of course, Gibson said when he said, if you can't learn from a guy like Kaline, who are you going to learn from? Pretty good teacher.
Darryl Motley with the count 1-0 hits a fly ball to shallow right field, and it's Gibson there to make the catch, and Jack Morris has begun things by retiring the first 5. And Steve Balboni coming up. A reminder, Game 2 of the National League Championship Series. Cubs winning today 13-0 since Steve Trout to the mound against Mark Thurman at 2 Eastern time, and we are here tomorrow night, prime time, 8 Eastern, 7 Central, 5 on the coast. Dan Petrie, an 18-game winner for Detroit, against 20-year-old Brett Saberhagen for the Royals, pitching in high school 2 years ago. Steve Balboni was a minor league terror in the Yankee system. They brought him up a couple of times, never really stuck with him or gave him a chance. 5 consecutive years he won a minor league home run title. The Royals traded for him, said first base is yours, my friend, and he's had a pretty good year. Grounded toward the hole. Let's look at Trammell's arm. It's a little weak, but he's lucky he had Balboni running.
You're right about that.
3 up and 3 down. To the third we go. It's Detroit 2 and Kansas City 0. Jim Campbell, the president of the Detroit Tigers, been with that team for a long time. And finally this year everything coming together for the first time in 12 years for the Tigers, who certainly last year showed signs of at least contending this year. There was little doubt about that. They did finish second to Baltimore in 1983. This year a club record 104 wins as Castillo leads off in the third inning, taking outside, ball 1. 1-0 the count.
And don't forget the owner, smart enough to stay out of the baseball people's way, Tom Monahan.
Ground ball foul, 1-1.
Remarkable man. Lovely piece on Peter Jennings' World News Tonight on Tom, king of Domino Pizza, who is such an important part of the Detroit community. That's the great thing about what this Detroit team has meant to that community and the inner city renaissance.
1-1 pitch is taken low. Not a bad year to decide to buy the club. Rookie owner. Of course,
spent a lot for it.
They're undergoing a transition here in Kansas City as well, where Ewing Kaufman has owned the team for many years, and Avram Fogelman came in. Black turned it over in the count, 2 balls and 2 strikes. Another look here from ground level.
Excellent changeup that goes away from right-handed hitters. And what Black's been able to do since the first 2 hitters, and there we see that not overpowering fastball, but just below 90 miles per hour for strike 3. But now what he's been able to do, he got a couple of pitches out over the plate to both Whitaker and Trammell. He's pitching inside, and he's using that screwball to go away. And here you see that looked like a cut fastball, just ran it in on Castillo, had no chance.
Well, after a little shakiness at the outset, Whitaker a single, and then Trammell a triple, and nice running catch by Sheridan on a sacrifice fly. Black appears to have things very much in sync as he goes through the order for the second time. It's ball 1 to Whitaker, 1-0.
Well, what that catch by Sheridan did was really keep them out of the big inning situation, not only physically but mentally push your team out of the game.
They got Black for a different Castillo.
Yep.
From Seattle.
Manny
Castillo.
Well, you know, we keep joking about the player to be named later. Well, Bud Black was the player to be named later in 1981. Manny Castillo going to the Seattle Mariners. And Black, the player to be named later, going to Kansas City as Whitaker grounds it down to Balboni. He'll shovel to Black, covering just in time. Turned it into a close play. Whitaker can run. 2 away. That's 8 in a row. Retired now by Bud Black.
One of those routine plays you practice every day in spring training. Black getting over there as quick as he can. He took the direct route to first base, was what you want to do. And as you said, you can see Whitaker can get down the baseline. He made that play pretty close.
Alan Trammell tripled in the first inning. Closed stance. He went to that closed stance in August, I guess it was in 1983. Gates Brown and Trammell worked on it. The first night he used it, he went 5 for 5, and he was sold at that point.
You know how he got to that closed stance? Now, when he first came up, remember, he was a dead right field, right center field hitter. Then Gates started to work with him, and he began to pull to left, and he had lost the ability to hit the right. Combining the two, now as he does, he pulled for the triple, you'll remember, in the first inning, and yet you'll see him frequently go to right field. It comes out of the stance that he's developed with Gates Brown.
3 balls, no strikes, the count. In there for a strike. You know, in every baseball season, there's always somebody who gets off to that incredibly hot start, makes magazine covers. This year it was Trammell. Then always somebody who sort of emerges in mid-season. And that was Ryne Sandberg this year over in the National League as Trammell takes ball 4.
Because of the way the afternoon game started, with a few notable errors by the amateur umpires, Jim, I'd like you to develop for us your view of what Deegan is doing, because there is obvious evidence of the experience and the assuredness within.
Well, what Bill Deegan has done is he's established a consistent strike zone. It's a little bit higher than I think the hitters would like, but he hasn't been calling a low pitch, so they know. And all you have to do is look at that outside protector. If you're a hitter and if you have any kind of smarts at all, you know that he's apt not to call the low strike, but you're probably going to have to start swinging at some of those high pitches. Now, if you're Jack Morris, that doesn't hurt you because you throw 95, 98 miles per hour. If you're Bud Black, it takes away that low strike, and for Black to be effective, he needs to get that low strike.
No balls, 1 strike, the count. As Gibson grounds it toward the middle and off the glove of Frank White and out into center field. The throw will come into second as Trammell scoots to third. And runners are at first and third now with 2 down, and Lance Parrish, who drove in a run with a sacrifice fly in the first inning, is coming up. Just off the glove of Frank White. It's a play he's made many times in his career.
Well, one of the best second basemen, and there you see him just diving to his right off the end of his glove, as you said. One of those AstroTurf hits.
That's exactly it.
I would venture to say with the high grass in Detroit,
That's an easy out.
most likely so.
Tigers on top. 2-0 as Lance Parrish comes up. 98 runs batted in for Parrish during the regular season. 2 on and 2 out. Low for a ball. 1-0 the count.
I mean, is Parrish the type of guy that if you wanted to go somewhere and you needed a bodyguard, I mean, would you ask him to, you know, just string along? I mean, the perfect size.
Yeah, you consider it. Might have Brian Downing in there with me. The two of them both lifting weights. Remember when Parrish started to lift weights a couple of winters ago and he showed up and Sparky Anderson couldn't believe it. Went wild. But it was wrong. But Parrish convinced him by having a good spring and a good regular season. It was right.
Oh, the way this man has worked to become what he now may be, the best defensive catcher in the game. The work that Bill Freehan, the former great Detroit catcher, has done with him now in the broadcast booth, Bill.
Well, Howard, you recall the All-Star game we did in Montreal in 1982. Parrish, the only man in All-Star history to throw out 3 would-be base stealers.
Just a little breaking ball behind in the count, 2-0. If you throw him a fastball, good chance of having a home run swing.
I recall it, Alfalfa. I didn't know you did.
Absolutely. I'll even tell you the count if you want. 2 balls and a strike. Parrish hits a high fly ball to deep center field. Fortunately for Wilson, there is some room and he makes the catch. Lance Parrish in a lot of ballparks would have 2 home runs tonight. Instead, we've still got a ball game. It's 2-0 Tigers at the end of 2 1/2. Frank White to lead off in a short series of best-of-5. White talks about the significance of the first game.
But I'm hoping we can at least split here going into Detroit. But Morris and Petrie have always been tough. We're throwing a tough pitcher in Bud Black. And the first game, I think, will be the key to the whole series.
Really?
Because if we can beat Morris, we beat Petrie once this year. Morris is a guy we haven't beat. And if we can get Morris the first game, I think that we realize what we did with Petrie early in the year. Knowing that he's a good pitcher, I think that'll give us the confidence for game 2.
For what it's worth, in the 15-year history of the playoffs, that's 30 playoff series, both leagues, the team that has won the first game has gone on to win 21 of them. That's 70%. And if a team goes down 0-2, only one team in 30 series has overcome that disadvantage, that being the Milwaukee Brewers in '82 against California. Tigers 2, Royals nothing. Al Michaels with Howard Cosell and Jim Palmer in Kansas City. Morris missing outside. Morris has retired the first 6.
But in terms of storyline, Jim, when you give Morris even a 2-run lead, which is what he has now, it becomes sort of a 7-inning game, doesn't it?
Well, it sure does. I had some relief pitchers when I pitched, but never anybody like Willie Hernandez that in 33 save situations, and there we see a comebacker right to the mound.
And Morris easily takes care of him.
But what happens is that you go 7 innings and you don't have any big innings, you keep them in the game, you hold them to 1 run, the game's just about over. Now, of course, the same thing applies if you're a Kansas City pitcher. What Bud Black wants to do is hold him at 2 runs, hope he gets 3, and get to Quisenberry. But I think this is going to prevail through the entire series.
Also, both teams have pretty good men to set up Hernandez and Quisenberry. The Royals have Joe Beckwith, who has filled that role very admirably. And the Tigers have Aurelio Lopez. The batter is Don Slaught. 1-0. Don Slaught went to UCLA. Fine baseball player for the Bruins. And the man right next to him right now in the crowd, Lance Parrish, had a chance to go to UCLA on a football scholarship, but wound up signing with the Tigers instead. Line drive, base hit into center field. First hit and first base runner for the Royals. And so Slaught is on with 1 down. And it will bring up Onyx Concepcion. A pair of college football games for you as Nebraska tries to rebound after the upset at the hands of Syracuse against surprising Oklahoma State. Georgia takes on Alabama college football on ABC this Saturday at 3:30 Eastern Time.
The loss to Syracuse was amazing.
Yeah. Concepcion takes a strike. He is no relation to David of the Reds. Broke his hand earlier this season. You know, one of the things that the Royals have been helped by measurably, especially down the stretch, is the production out of the bottom of the order. White and Slaught and Concepcion all had good Septembers.
Slaught will fool you. He hit Finland 300 last year, but he was a catcher last year that they didn't want to pitch to, some of those Royals pitchers. You know that, Jim.
Well, he certainly changed, Howard. You go talk to any of the, go talk to the pitching coach, or you go talk to some of the pitchers, they like throwing to Don Slaught. I think a lot of it has to do with that John Waffen was here for years.
That's
right. He's kind of a tradition here. A very nice guy.
Look at what Concepcion has hit since the All-Star break. It's unbelievable.
Well, he came all the way from 220 to 280. As you said, he broke his hand in the midst of that streak, but came back just as high.
In the air to right center field, and it's Lemon calling for it to make the catch. The League Championship Series is now official as we have had our first wave rolling around and still rolling around Royal Stadium in Kansas City. And with 2 down, it brings up Willie Wilson. That's a sight that has now become familiar everywhere. I'm waiting for it at the Opera House.
I didn't know you were an opera buff.
I'm not. I'm just waiting for it.
Outside, right?
Right. Willie Wilson slaps it into left field for a base hit. Don Slaught will stop at second, and so the Royals, who are down 2-0, have runners at first and second. 2 down in the 3rd inning, and Pat Sheridan coming up.
Didn't you like the way Wilson just snapped back?
Well, if you can run like Willie can, you would try to just make contact. Fastball away, just goes the other way. He's not a particularly strong hitter. Most of his home runs are the inside the park variety. And in this ballpark, as Charlie Lau espoused while he was alive, hit the ball where it's pitched.
So it's 2-0. The Tigers on top, but with 2 down, runners at first and second. Pat Sheridan struck out in the 1st inning. And Morris is ahead 0-1. Dunn got Morris that time at 97 miles per hour.
Now, I think this is one of the interesting parts of pitching and baseball and whole. We saw the first time he just went right by Sheridan with high fastballs. Let's see if Sheridan adjusts, either by taking them.
No.
There we saw that split finger fastball. When you're throwing 97 mile per hour and the hitter knows that he struck out the last time on a high fastball, and then you come back with a pitch like that, I would have to say Sheridan's in trouble.
Well, he owned Sheridan in his first at-bat, and he's owned him on the first 2 pitches here. And this is low for ball 1, 1-2. Morris, very tough in these situations. Slaught is at second. Wilson is at first. That's the best time if you're on the field and look at Willie Wilson with a man ahead of him on base. Foul back, still 1-2.
I go back to the 1966 World Series when we went to play the Dodgers in Los Angeles, and Dave McNally, a couple of singles of bases loaded walk, and Jim Murray wrote the next day, Dave McNally stopped the Dodgers running attack by loading the bases. You're right. You don't want Willie Wilson to get on first with an open base in front of him. It's just like throwing a double.
And Sheridan slaps it down the left field line. It is curling, foul ball.
But these are pesky hitters. They're slap hitters.
Well, if you look at the Kansas City lineup, and there we say the ball just curving barely foul. And you said, I think, best, Howard, before the game when you said this is a game of luck. Not a whole lot of difference between a ball that's just barely foul and a double, possibly a triple, the way the ball bounces around in the corner here.
But Mr. Rickey said luck is the residue of design. Not a bad phrase.
I think I'll use that if I ever manage.
Earl's managing every team in baseball.
1-2 pitch. 2-2 the count. A lot of jobs for Earl to have right now.
He can handle them all. Can't he?
I'm taking the 5th.
2-2 the count. Ball 3. So now the runners will be going. Slot from second, and Wilson will be taking off from first.
From an 0-2 count, look at he was in deep trouble. Look at the way he's hung in there.
Well, he hasn't chased those high pitches. I think considering that the umpires are on strike and that Earl had such a great ability to be an umpire, he ought to volunteer.
3-2 pitch is fouled away. Came in with a fastball, and so the runners go back. Slot to second. Wilson to first.
I mean, let's face it, Earl umpired from the dugout for 14 years. Why couldn't he do it from the broadcasting booth?
Let him up.
Let him up.
Equal time tomorrow for Weaver. 2 o'clock Eastern time. And the 3-2. Morris falls down on ball 4. Morris fell down as he delivered, and so they're loaded up for Brett.
Kind of hard to tell what kind of pitch he was trying to throw, but you can just see his left foot start to slide.
So they're loaded up now with Slaught at third, Wilson at second, Sheridan at first. A lot of times when the pitcher falls down, the ball will go to the backstop, and with Morris on the ground, had that happened, Kansas City might have had a run, especially with the runners going. So in that sense, he was fortunate. Brett, 2 out, bases loaded. Ball 1. Pop foul and back out of play, and the count is 1 ball and 1 strike. George Brett in postseason play. No, you remember some of his accomplishments. 1970-80, he had 3 homers in a game at Yankee Stadium. 1980, he hit a home run off Goose Gossage at Yankee Stadium. Turned out to be the key blow in the pennant clinching game for the Royals. 1-2 the count.
Looks like another split finger fastball. Looks like the pattern he's trying to establish is throw enough fastballs to keep George honest and then get him out like he did when he struck him out the first inning with a split finger fastball.
You think George's having any trouble with his swing because of that hamstring?
Well, I talked to him yesterday and he said he felt fine. Whether that's the truth or not, George is the type of guy that's not going to...
He lines it to right field. Here comes Gibson, and he makes the catch. It looked like he had a beat on the ball, and it looked for a moment as if he was indecisive, but just very, very briefly, and then in to make the catch to retire the side.
Can't hit it any better than that. Reasonably similar situation earlier today. Those of you who watched the afternoon game know when Moreland made the good catch. Here, as we look at it again, wasn't as difficult as Moreland's catch, but he was where he had to be, and he backhanded it.
We played 3, and it's still 2-0 Tigers in game 1.
There's Garvey at third. You've got Kennedy at second.
This is a very favorite spot right now for a hitter, Donnie. 2 balls and no strikes. You know you're going to get a ball to drive. Just keep it fair.
And you've got to be a little selective, too. To right field, hard, coming on. Moreland makes the catch! What a catch by Moreland!
And then Lance Parrish drove in Trammell on a play on which Pat Sheridan made a fine catch in deep right center. So the Tigers settled for 2 in the inning. The Royals threatened in the bottom of the 3rd, loading the bases, but Brett lining out to Gibson. And now we go to the 4th. Larry Herndon, Barbaro Garbe, and Chet Lemon for Detroit. Bud Black. completing his first full season. Last year he began the season at Omaha, AAA, but spent most of the year up here. To deep left field and hooking toward the corner and out of here. Larry Herndon, who did not hit a home run this season, and everybody was wondering why until the 21st of June. And then he didn't hit his second home run until the 7th of August. After hitting 43 over the preceding 2 seasons, has given Detroit a 3-0 lead.
Behind the hitter again, Herndon gets a fastball, most likely looking for it. Black just isn't that overpowering that he can get behind the hitters and lay that fastball in there. Scores 3-0. Very simple game. Kind of reminds me of the last game of '82.
Yeah. Barbaro Garbey, the batter, and the count is 1-0.
Get behind Yount, home run. Get behind Yount, home run. Get behind Cooper, home run.
1 ball, 1 strike the count. Very loose Tiger dugout. Team that spent every day of the season in first place. They began the year with 9 straight wins, reeled off another 9-game winning streak during that 35-5 start, and also a 7-game winning streak. Sparky Anderson was saying it got to the point where, you know, you're 35-5 and you just don't think you can lose.
What does a manager mean to a ball player? What can he do? The relationship between Anderson and Herndon is what's kept Herndon in there, what's made him the ball player he became until this year, and what will probably restore him next year to the form he displayed the prior 2 years. That's a man with a syntax reminiscent of the late Casey Stengel. Convoluted sentences, yet the way it all winds up has a cogency in a sense that amounts to baseball wisdom.
To deep center field, Willie Wilson going back, and he has room to make the catch here. Again, a long fly ball. Parrish has hit 2 that would have been out of several other parks, and Garbey hitting this one to deep center. So Black is struggling again. 4th inning with 1 out, and Lemon is the batter. You know, one thing about Sparky, Howard, he was given short shrift in Cincinnati. It's easy to say in retrospect. He had all of those guys who were going to the Hall of Fame. He wasn't a push-button manager. He was one of the best in the game, if not the best.
No question about it. One of the nice things about this series is the way the 2 managers respect one another, and it's not just talk.
Lemon fouling it away. Well, the golfer Tom Watson, native of Kansas City, home to root for the Royals.
I wonder if Tom Selleck's coming from Hawaii to root for Detroit.
To center, and right there is Wilson. Willie is in his tracks for the out. 2 away. Darrell Evans is really a first-class, first-rate gentleman, I guess is the best way to describe him. If you enjoy seeing good things happen to nice people, you can be happy for Evans. A long career, and spent most of it not necessarily anonymously, but with clubs that really weren't in races very often. Atlanta in the early days, and then San Francisco, and finally getting his moment in the sun now.
Playing his former song.
That's right. I Left My Heart.
You know, the funny thing was in San Francisco, there was a big scoop. Bob Lurie was holding a press conference. They wrote it was to announce Jim Fregosi as the new manager. It was to announce that he was putting the club up for sale. That's tomorrow night's pitcher. This kid has beaten Detroit 3 times. Brett Saberhagen.
3-1 on the year.
Sparky says he fears most.
Well, he ought to. He's got great command of his pitches. Got an excellent fastball. I think it was interesting what he said when he pitched against the Angels. I grew up in California. I've seen him play. I know how to get him out, so I did it. I wonder if he's watched the Tigers play. Obviously he has. 3-1.
Evans getting sent back. You mentioned Darrell before, Jim. Low average as we look at it again. It's only .232 this year, but he walks a lot. He always has. He led the club in walks, and his on-base percentage is pretty good. 3-2.
Well, I think the big adjustment he had to make after being in the National Leagues all that year is a little bit bigger strike zone. He said he was not particularly disciplined early in the year, and he was taking a lot of pitches that may have been balls in the National League. They were strikes over here, and then he started chasing those pitches. But again, 16 home runs is not a bad year.
He rolls it on the carpet into right field for a base hit. Now there is your prototypical AstroTurf hit. They talk about it being a pool table. This is not AstroTurf, by the way. It's what they call tart turf that was laid down here when the park opened in '73, and they're going to resurface during the offseason. But watch it. It never bounces. It just rolls like it's on a pool table. Right under Balboni's glove.
Let me tell you something. Balboni, a big man, and appears to some to be lumbering, is no slouch at first base, Jim. He's a pretty good defensive first baseman.
Marty Castillo takes a strike.
Of course, there is a little bit of difference between being a good first baseman and having great range. I'm not sure if Steve would exactly be an Eddie Murray or a type of guy like...
How many of those are there?
Not... Well, for the pitchers union, thank goodness not too many.
Roof camera.
2-2 on Castillo. Sparky Anderson contending Howard Johnson will be his third baseman next year. Johnson doing a good part of the work at third this year, but he goes with Castillo against the lefty here. And as we mentioned, tomorrow night, Evans plays third against the righty Saberhagen.
There was a pitch that Deegan might have given him, you know. But you said earlier, he's giving them a high strikes.
That's exactly right. That low curveball, no dice. So we're going to see a 3-2 pitch.
Evans is going, and it's fouled away. And Slot took that one off his shoulder.
One thing we should say about Sparky, one of his greatest assets, and he, as you said, he is what we call a cheerleader. I remember in 1982, Howard Johnson came up. He said this guy's going to hit 300 in the big leagues for the next 10 years. Now, maybe he will if he ever gets a chance to play.
If you like publicity, Sparky's a wonderful guy to have on your side. I mean, Sparky can help you win an award. Make your name pretty well known as Castillo grounds it by Brett and out into left field for a base hit. And to the bottom of the order, put men at first and second with two down.
They've really belted Black this inning. The 2 outs were hard drives to center field.
Just a little changeup, but right in the middle of the plate.
Talking about Sparky publicizing a ball player, sometimes he doesn't, and later is rueful about it as Blaylock comes out to have a talk with his pitcher.
Gary Blaylock, the pitching coach, and they will get busy in the bullpen. In the bullpen for Kansas City is Mark Usman. Their long man. Again, the 2 key relievers would be Beckwith, who they like to go to about the 7th inning if they can, sometimes as early as the 6th, and then if they have the lead, they finish up with Quiz.
Basic problem here for the Royals is simple, as Jim stated earlier. You get 3 runs behind Morris, he gives you 7 innings, and then you got Hernandez, and you're dead. That's what Frank White was talking about when he said the first game of this series is critical. If we can beat their ace, Morris, that's something. We know we can beat Petrie. Not saying he's not a good pitcher, but we've beaten him.
Whitaker gets backed off the plate, ball 1. So the Tigers on the verge of breaking this one open here.
Excuse me, I think another thing, of course, Frank White was thinking was, hey, Brett Saberhagen is 3-1, and Black's never beaten him. So if they win tonight, it's like a plus, something they really didn't expect. And I think if you look at all 4 playoff games, and there's a low and away strike again. Black not getting that pitch. Slot a little bit upset.
That's turning his game on him.
Well, again, he's 2-0, 2 balls, no strikes. Do you throw him the fastball that he singled on the first time, or do you come with a breaking ball and take a chance of maybe going ball 3?
Fastball, ground ball down to Frank White. And so Black escapes further damage here in the 4th inning. A leadoff homer by Herndon. 3 hits. They lead 2. We played 3.5. It's Detroit 3 and Kansas City nothing.
This ABC Sports Exclusive is being brought to you by Bud Light. The best has a taste all its own, satisfying but never filling.
Remember that man, Freddie Patek, played shortstop for several years here in Kansas City and still a very popular figure. He looks on along with about 40,000 others at Wrigley Field today. If you missed it, Cubs 13, San Diego nothing. 5 home runs for Chicago and a victory for Rick Sutcliffe. It's the most lopsided shutout, by the way, in any postseason game, playoffs or World Series in baseball history. Orta leads off by lining one by the third base coach, Mike Ferraro, here in the bottom of the 4th inning.
Sutcliffe's homer looked like it was going to the lake. What a blow.
What a year. In a way, a very fascinating year in baseball. You look at all of the teams that made the playoffs last season. None of them finished higher than 4th this year. In the last 3 seasons, we've had the maximum 12 separate teams in postseason play. Oh, 2 pitches, low and inside.
A couple of weeks ago, I was up in New York and I talked to Rick Sutcliffe. Of course, he kind of touched on this today in one of the interviews. He said when he was with Cleveland, he knew he wasn't going to get a whole lot of runs, so he led the league in walks a couple of years. He said in Wrigley Field, they put a touchdown on the board before the 5th inning almost every time he pitches. A lot easier to pitch under those conditions. Today was no exception.
Orta hits a high fly ball to left field, and it's Larry Herndon getting underneath it.
That's twice he couldn't get around on it against Jack. That's twice he's flying to left.
1 away.
Let me tell you, that trade Cleveland made is yet to be heard from in the years to come, Jim. That kid Carter has the look of being some ball player.
Well, along with Mel Hall,
Hall isn't bad either.
A lot of times it takes a couple of years to really judge a trade. I'm sure the Cubs, obviously, Sutcliffe 17-1 of the year, very happy. I go back to '76 when we got Dempsey and Tippy Martinez, people like that. We kind of ensured the Yankees a pennant that year, but in the long run, it was one of the greatest trades the Orioles ever made.
They weren't going to sign Sutcliffe anyway. He wasn't going to stay there. So they got something for him for the future.
Jack Morris working on Darryl Motley, missing high. 1 ball and 1 strike to count. It's about time your guy Gabe got things turned around in Cleveland, isn't it?
Well, he may leave Cleveland with his greatest David Harum operation. Who can tell?
1-1 pitch. Swing and a miss. 1-2. Gunn has Morris consistently in the mid-90s, 95 on that last one.
He is really firing the ball. Yep, first half of the season, he was the best pitcher in the league. The second half of the season, Bud Black was the best. But again, in his final 3 outings, he never pitched better.
Half swing, bouncer to third. It's Castillo fielding and throwing across to Evans. 2 down here in the 4th inning. And it will bring up Steve Balboni.
Going back to Jack Morris, they had him winning 30 games when he had that great start. Didn't even end up winning 20. But the one thing about Jack, you can use the cliche. I talked to Roger Craig. He said a lot of his problems is that he wants to win so badly when things don't go his way, not only physically but sometimes emotionally, he overreacts. He's taken a lot of flack from his teammates this year because of some of his outbursts.
He has, and they were publicly critical of him. Inside.
But again, I think, Al, don't you think that when you have the ability, and we've seen the 97-mile-per-hour fastball, the great slider, and the great forkball, sometimes they expect you to win 30 games, 20 games. I mean, the expectation level for Jack Morris is a very great one.
1-0 pitch, and it became fashionable early this season when a guy wins 10 that quickly. As you look at Balboni's September numbers and the month he had, it becomes fashionable to relate to the past. And in Detroit, when you talk about winning 30 games, that's where it happened the last time when Denny McLain did it in 1968.
Wonder what Chet Forty has in mind.
1-1 pitch. Swing and a miss. When you talk about streak hitters, Balboni at one point this season hit 10 homers in 14 games. At another point, he was 0 for 23 with 15 strikeouts, including 9 Ks in a row.
Hauser doesn't care about that. That's the way he's developed Balboni. He's told him to forget the strikeouts. Injuries, he only had, let me get this in quickly, 400 plus at bats. He wants to get 600 at bats out of him. Thinks he'll hit over 30 home runs a year and 100 RBIs.
Chases this one in the dirt for strike 3. We go to the 5th in game 1. Tigers 3, Royals nothing.
the essence of hitting. George Brett.
Some guys say it's the rhythm, reading the pitch. For me, it's a feeling that says I'm going downtown.
The essence of shaving.
This is Atra by Gillette. It pivots so the twin blades stay on your beard longer. But what Atra is all about is the feeling that says you just got Gillette's best shave.
Gillette, the essence of shaving.
Some question about whether or not Alan Trammell could play defensively in the second half of the season because of his shoulder, but he's played, and here's what he had to say.
Well, I think there's no question. I don't think my arm's been 100% since I hurt it, but I've been able to get by with it. It really is the plays that the harder plays are the easiest ones where I don't think about it. But really, I've had 3 days off, and I feel very good. I'm out here throwing today, and it feels very good.
He hasn't had a tough play defensively. Offensively, he has tripled, driven in a run, scored a run, and walked. 1 for 1. And hits a high fly ball to deep left field and down into the corner. That's got a chance. He's hit it out of here. A triple and a home run for Alan Trammell. And the Tigers lead 4-0. Trammell hit 14 during the regular season. So a homer and a triple and 2 runs scored tonight. 4-0 Tigers.
We talked about Bud Black's control. Tonight he has control in the middle of the plate. Doesn't throw hard enough to do that. Kind of a thigh-high fastball right down the middle. Trammell's too good a hitter to pitch him that way.
You just can't fall behind this Detroit team. Earl was talking about the strength of this team today. You know he's picked them to win everything, and
Gibson.
I think he's right.
Gibson bunting, and a nice play by Bud Black to get down off the mound quickly and shovel to first base. You think of Gibson big and burly as solely a power hitter. If you haven't seen him play, this is something he does a lot. He will bunt. He has great speed, led the team in steals, and it's a good bunt here. Simply a nice play by Black.
I'm surprised how he was able to make this play. One of these plays that you practice in spring training, but not with Gibson running. He makes an excellent play, a nice scoop by Balboni.
That's what you talked about earlier, and you were on target, Jim, in the pregame show when you talked about Hernandez and Lopez, because you get behind this team, you can't emphasize it too much. You got a 7-inning ball game against them, because then in comes Willett.
Parrish, a fly ball to shallow left center, and so after 800 feet worth of outs, this one is a soft fly ball to Wilson. There's Trammell. 2 down, and Herndon coming up. Larry homered his last trip.
I think one thing we really haven't talked about is we talked about Tom Monahan buying the Tigers. We saw Jim Cantle, who's the president, and helped develop them. But they had a change in philosophies. They signed Herndon. They signed Lemon. They signed Trammell to a long-term contract. They kept a lot of their guys, and they went out on the free agent market. Got Darrell Evans. Made the great trade with Glenn Wilson and Walkenfuss for Willie Hernandez and Dave Bergman. That's helped shore up their defense in late-inning situations. They won 92 games last year, but they did not have the type of players that they have this year. They improved their ball club.
Well, they went out and did something like sign Rupert Jones, who went to spring training with Pittsburgh, sent him to Evansville to the minor leagues, and then brought him up in June.
He used to be the wildest swinger in the world. The job that Anderson and Sparky has done with him is unbelievable. I said we'd get to it tomorrow when Rupert will be playing.
2 balls, 2 strikes on Larry Herndon. Black took something off it, bounced easily to Concepcion, and the Tigers are done in the 5th inning. But they pad their lead on the homer by Trammell. Through 4.5 at KC, it's Detroit 4 and Royals nothing.
In Game 1 of the National League Championship Series, Rick Sutcliffe beat the Padres on the mound and at the plate. A 13-0 defeat has San Diego looking for revenge. Tomorrow, live at 2 Eastern.
Tomorrow, Game 2, right back here at Royal Stadium in Kansas City. Dan Petrie against Brett Saberhagen with a losing record, but he's a rookie who pitched exceptionally well down the stretch in some critical games in that tight American League Western Division race, and you'll see him tomorrow night.
The interesting thing going into this series, they talk about, of course, Game 2 of the National League Series, which we'll see tomorrow, too, Thurman against Steve Trout. The interesting thing about this series, Jim, they talk about home field advantage. This is a series with road field advantage, which accrues in the long run to Kansas City. Detroit has yet to lose here this year, and Kansas City lost only once out of 6 times at Detroit. Interesting.
Well, Reggie Jackson touched on that today, where he thought the reason, as I said in the pregame, the Royals had an advantage because the Tigers don't play that well here.
White.
Well, they were 6-0.
White fouls it away. That's the only time since this team came into the American League in '69 that a visiting team has swept all the games in one year at Royal Stadium. Kansas City 5-1 in Detroit.
And I think the reason for that, Al, is that you take these Kansas City players, they're not home run threats here, but when you get them away in Detroit, they can hit some home runs.
Grounded to short. Now let's watch Trammell's arm again, and it's a high throw, but Evans is able to stay on the bag.
Fans booed, but that call was maybe questionable in their minds, but not the kind of call that created problems in the early going early this afternoon. And look at it again. Just what we talked about with Trammell about his arm.
Now is Evans on the bag or not? There is John Bible, who is the first base umpire. He was one of those brought in. Dick Butler had been familiar with his work. They brought in 3 umpires that Dick knew of, and of course Deegan back at the plate, a former American leaguer, and then 3 other umpires from the Kansas City area, comprising the 6-man crew here tonight. So 1 out and 1-0 the count on Don Slaught, and Morris just blows it by him, 1-1.
What was it Dick Hauser was telling us before the game? He only hopes this game doesn't turn on one bad call because of the current strike situation. Certainly up till now, there's no reason to fear it.
Fastball, half swing, 1 hopper. Evans backs up and overhands to Morris. And there are 2 down. Morris, who started the game by retiring 7 straight, and has now run off a string of 6 in a row. And it brings up Onyx Concepcion.
He's only had 1 difficult inning. That was in the 3rd. Bases filled. 2 out. George Brett up. Sticky moment. Brett slashed a liner, hit it right on the button to right. Gibson had some trouble with it. A year ago, Gibson might not have played that ball the way he did tonight. Backhanded it, made the catch.
Strike 1 to Concepcion.
Otherwise, no trouble.
Now, when Kirk Gibson first came up, he had so much speed, a little bit like Ron LaFleur, who used to play with the Tigers and the White Sox, that he would overrun balls. Just didn't have the ability to do that.
Grounded down to short. Alan Trammell over to first, and Morris is sailing along. 7 straight. The Royals are gone in order once more. At the end of 5, it's still Tigers 4, Royals nothing.
You know, one of the best things about being an ex-big leaguer is getting freebies to the game. Call the front office, bingo. And once these fans recognize me, I probably won't even have to pay for my light beer from Miller. I love them. These fans know I drink light because it's less filling and it tastes great. Good seats, huh?
You're in the wrong seat, buddy. Come on.
Oh, I must be in the front row.
Come on.
Light beer from Miller. Everything you always wanted in a beer, and less.
Good seats, eh, buddy? He missed the tag! He missed the tag!
Al Michaels, Howard Cosell, Jim Palmer at Kansas City, and Dick Hauser goes to his bullpen. Bud Black had given up 4 runs in 5 innings and a lot of long outs as well. And so it's Mark Huseman, middleman, in the bullpen, though he does have 3 saves earlier in the season. He was closing some games. And he takes over here. Monday Night Football next week featuring the San Francisco 49ers, unbeaten 5-0, taking on the New York Giants at East Rutherford, 9 Eastern time.
Walsh, one of the coaches I most respect in all of football. Just a brilliant coach. Coach of the Niners. Giants coming apart at the seams against the Rams. 3 safeties in 1 quarter. How do you do that?
I don't know. You tell me.
It wasn't hard.
Garbe grounds into the hole. It's backhanded by Concepcion, but there's no play at all for Onyx, and it's an infield single as Garbe leads off here in the 6th inning by getting aboard. 4 runs and 8 hits now for the Tigers. No runs and 2 hits for Kansas City.
See George Brett just playing even with the bag on the turf. No chance to get that ball. Concepcion to his right with no play.
How do you do that, you ask? You get a couple of punts blocked.
Huh?
You get sacked. It's easy.
Sound like you're doing the halftime highlights. Lemon takes inside, ball 1.
Alfalfa.
I want to get my own private screening here. One ball and no strikes. The count on Lemon.
What are we going to do with him, Jim?
I've got the car keys. Grounded down to short. Should be 2. And the Royals turn it. Concepcion to White to Balboni.
Love to watch Frank White on the pivot, don't you?
Excellent second baseman, Howard.
Ball ricochets.
Good sinker, bounce right to short. On the turf, a routine double play, especially when you can turn it like Concepcion and White can. Not too many better second basemen than Frank White.
And hit 17 home runs this year.
I think he even surprised himself with that kind of power.
He's averaged out at about 11, surprisingly, when in the beginning nobody thought he had that kind of occasional power.
Well, I think what this illustrates again why maybe they were 5-1 in Detroit is that he feels that he has the ability to hit home runs on the road, but here at Royal Stadium with its vastness, it's not as easy to do.
Darrell Evans squibs one up along the first base line, and Steve Balboni does it himself. And that's that for the Tigers here in the 6th inning. Kansas City coming up, they trail 4-0. Willie Wilson will lead off for Kansas City in the 6th. Here are the thoughts of his teammate, George Brett, on Willie.
I'm so proud of that, man. I think everybody in the ball club is. He overcame a lot of obstacles, and he didn't hit his .330 like he hits every year, or close to it, but he did help the team tremendously. I've never seen him play harder on a daily basis. I've never seen him as cordial to not only his teammates but the fans and to the reporters. He was actually very pleasant to be around, and I don't mean to say that like he never was before. But sometimes I guess when you have problems inside and other outside interests, sometimes I guess you're turning off other people. But this year he didn't do that at all. He was definitely a team player and really a pleasure to play with. He's a Superman.
Nice statement,
yes,
wasn't it?
Right
nice,
on Wilson.
Nice man, and Wilson, a great human story.
Fouled away. Very sobering experience. I don't have to tell you, 81 days of confinement in Texas after the drug conviction. He and Willie Aikens and Jerry Martin and Vida Blue, just to document it again, Blue had been released, all spending time in prison. Aikens going to Toronto on a deal, Martin going to the Mets. He was
Mets
released,
just released Martin.
Yep.
Forgive the interruption.
And Blue is going to attempt to come back as Whitaker throws Wilson out here in the bottom of the 6th inning. So Willie is gone, 1 away.
Incidentally, Jim,
the right fielder.
There's the scoring summary. First inning, the Whitaker single, a Trammell questionable triple. Motley might have gotten to it. Deep sacrifice fly by Parrish. Herndon home run, and then the Trammell home run. So there it was, 4-0, and there it is.
Sheridan has struck out and walked. Jack Morris has retired 8 in a row. Strike. Morris's only shutout this season was his no-hitter in his second start of the year in April against Chicago. Oh, 2.
I don't see where the umpires have been a very big story tonight. Do you, Jim?
Not at all. Much more so this afternoon. Writers said, how can an umpire have a significant part in a 13-0 game? Well, if you're Eric Shaw and you throw the first pitch for a strike and the umpire calls it a ball, you're not overpowering, and you throw the next pitch belled high and Dernier hits it for a home run, it's not exactly a confidence booster. It's unbelievable, but being a former pitcher, one pitch can change the complexion of an entire game. I'm not
I'll
gonna
buy
make out
that,
by
but
it.
I think you're overstating it.
Well, I am. I'm not. I don't want to make anybody feel that the reason that the Cubs won today was because of the umpires. When
I
you put
hope not.
13 runs on the board, you've earned your victory. But it does change the tenor of the game.
1 ball, 2 strikes the count.
You may have noticed Al Willie Hernandez at the end of the inning went down to the bullpen. And the interesting thing about the 4 playoff teams, even discounting the 13-0 slaughter this afternoon, each team has the great short reliever. Amplify, Jim.
Well, they certainly do. We have Gossage.
Lee
Great
Smith.
acquisition. Lee Smith, who's done a great job for the Cubs. And Quisenberry and Hernandez and Lopez. And here we see that split-fingered fastball, better known as a forkball, dipping just underneath the bat of Pat Sheridan for strike 3.
2 down. Brett, the batter, has struck out and then lined to right. Gibson making the catch with the bases loaded. He lines this one to left field, but there is Herndon to make the catch. And so the Tigers with a 4-run cushion, and Morris has now retired 10 straight. We go to the 7th. Still in game 1, it's 4-0. Detroit leading the Royals.
IBM presents You Make the Call. In an attempt to break up a double play, a runner deliberately strays off course and upends the fielder before he can throw to first. Is the batter out too? You make the call.
Everyone is cordially invited to a computer demonstration starring PC Junior from IBM. But what can you do with PC Junior? There are many programs for learning, word processing, filing, budgeting, planning, and more, including many business programs that run on the IBM PC. You can run over 1,000 programs with PC Junior. Now with new keyboard at a store near you.
When a runner deliberately leaves the baseline to break up a double play, it's interference and both the runner and batter are out. If you said so, you made the right call.
Look around a beautiful facility located just off I-70, about 8 or 9 miles east of downtown Kansas City. This park opened in 1973 with the fountains in the outfield. It's a spacious playing surface. In terms of seating capacity, though, it's one of the smaller parks. In fact, only Fenway Park in the American League is a smaller park. Kansas City holding about 40,000. But, you know, they like to use the cliche, in every town, not a bad seat in the joint. It really applies here. You are very close to the action, comfortable and clean, and a beautiful baseball facility. College football, Nebraska, Oklahoma State, or Georgia, Alabama. Check your local listings for the game you will see at 3:30 Eastern time this Saturday.
Well, once Syracuse upset Nebraska, Ben Schwartzwalder didn't have to go back, and you with him. You know that.
Exactly. Ben Schwartzwalder. Castillo. McPherson's going to make him forget Schwartzwalder after what he pulled off this week for the Orangemen. Castillo, Whitaker, and Trammell in the 7th inning. Huseman on in relief of Bud Black. Time called as they remove a banner that had been draped over the railing in left field.
You saw this beautiful ballpark a moment ago in the water fountains. Give it to Reggie, Jim. He hit a ball over the fountain. It was just the most monumental blow I've ever seen struck in this ballpark.
I don't know if we can get a view of, I mean, we can see out there in right field, the bullpen area. One in 1976, Lee May, who is the organizational batting coach with the Kansas City Royals, who were playing for the Orioles along with Reggie. They hit back-to-back home runs off the back of the left field and the right field bullpens. Two of the long, it was unbelievable, off Larry Gura.
Off Larry?
There goes Castillo, striking out. Good breaking ball, one away.
Well, Huseman's doing what he's supposed to do. He's coming in here, and we talked about the 7th-inning game, and he's doing his job. Gets ahead of Castillo, and we have the super slow. Good slider, right where you want it, low and away, and you can see the what we call not a equally balanced swing by Castillo for strike 3. That's part, go ahead, Jim. Excuse me, I was just saying that's part of pitching. You establish that fastball and then use that, and there we saw the fastball, throw that breaking ball, change speeds.
tailing away.
Well, if the ball moves, you got a chance. Usman ball does do that.
No balls, 1 strike the count. Whitaker taking inside. Howard, you talked about the Tiger ownership before. New owner there, and I mentioned Av Fogelman, now a co-owner with Ewing Kaufman here in Kansas City. Silently and very consistently, this franchise has done a tremendous job. They've been in the playoffs 5 of the last 9 years. John Schuerholz, the general manager, and Joe Burke, the president. Burke Robinson helping to bring the players along, even in public relations and marketing with Dean Vogelar. These people have been here a long time, and they have been solid and very, very steady, and it's a credit to them. 5 times in 9 years they're in the playoffs.
Yeah, but I got to tell you, Hauser is the core. With his leadership, he's proof of what a manager can do. By taking a group of players, holding them together, which was remarkable. I tell you, when they left Yankee Stadium, and this was after the All-Star game, having lost 5 in a row, they went out of there so apparently hangdog, and yet they weren't at all. Of course, geography helped them. Even though they fell to 11 below 500, they were still in the pennant race because of the weakness of the division. Then how do you answer George Steinbrenner when he says, stop this nonsense, revise the rules? Kansas City would have finished 6th in our division. Your repost, if you will, Alfalfa.
Well, an earthquake would move Kansas City further east, I suppose. Driven to right field, where Sheridan has it off his glove after he had caught up with the ball. And Whitaker will wind up at second base. He was playing shallow in right field, went back, and got there, but it deflected off the edge of his glove, and so Whitaker winds up at second.
They gave him a double, and they shouldn't.
A lot of room to work with.
Yep.
Again, wearing glasses, he sometimes reflection at night, because it looked like he got to the ball, he just wasn't able to catch it. And we saw him make that great play on Parrish's ball in the first inning. He has good hands, he has good speed, just doesn't come up with that one.
Anyway, basically, Coach, the rules say all you got to do is win your division, and that's what Hauser and the Royals did.
I threw that line at George Brett when I spoke to him yesterday. He gave me some answer.
What did he say?
I don't know. I don't know if our producer, Chuck Howard's going to get that. I'd rather he said it, frankly.
By the way, they scored that an error on Sheridan, 2-base error. Not a double for Whitaker. So he's at second, and the batter, Trammell, fouls it away, and the count is 0-2.
Of course, both Georges have had a problem before, you'll recollect.
Something to do with pine tar. 0-2 pitch. Line drive off White's glove and out into right field, and Whitaker will round third and score to make it 5-0.
What a game Trammell has had, and note that time he went to right field.
That's a single, a triple, a home run, and a walk for him tonight.
Well, you talked about his ability to pull the ball. There he fights one off. Makes good contact, hits that line drive, and Frank White gave it a great effort. You know, when you're pitching and Frank White doesn't catch it, the ball wasn't destined to be caught. It's an interesting thing what you said about Trammell. Gage Brown did work with him, but the most important thing when you're a hitter is your opposite shoulder. And when he closed his stance, he still has the ability to keep that left shoulder in. He's quick enough, he's smarter, he's a much more mature player than when he first came up. He can pull the ball, and he can also go the other way, as we just saw.
Now Gibson at the plate with the Tigers on top 5-0.
He's a complete ball player.
Well, as we said early in the ball game, you talk about him being the most valuable player candidate until he really hurt his shoulder and didn't play. They had to bring up Doug Baker.
Chopper toward the middle, and that's out into center field for a base hit. Gibson has his second hit. That's 10 hits now for the Tigers, who are starting the playoffs as they did the regular season in like fashion, quickly out of the gate.
Just another turf hit.
I suspect the gate has been closed for Kansas City in this game.
For tonight, I wouldn't bet against you, pal. 1-2.
Little swing and a miss on a good breaking ball, similar to the slider that Castillo struck out on.
Mark Huseman, 26-year-old. This is his first full year with Kansas City, missing outside. Huseman, one of those rare types that somehow escapes the gaze of major league scouts, or at least doesn't impress him. They don't draft him, winds up signing as a free agent, and 4 years later he's in the big leagues.
I think what he has, Al, is the ability to be a middle reliever because he doesn't have outstanding stuff. He doesn't have 3 or 4 pitches that's going to allow him to go through the batting order 2 or 3 times. But he's the type of guy that can come in for an inning or 2.
And he strikes Parrish out here. Big out in the 7th inning. 2 down, and Larry Herndon will be coming up, possibly, or they will go to the bench. Here's Herndon's 4th inning home run, and as you look at the replay, you're not going to see him get a chance to duplicate it because Anderson's going to go to the bench for Rupert Jones. But there was Herndon's shot to lead off the 4th inning.
That's one of the interesting things about Sparky as a manager. It doesn't matter what lead he has. He plays his game. He uses the roster. I believe he has a deeper affection for Herndon based upon my years with Sparky and knowing him than he has for any other player. It's something within him. And here he takes Herndon out, who's hit a home run, puts up Rupert Jones. He uses the entire roster, no matter how much ahead he is.
Well, he also knows, too, with that lead, he's going to have Jones go into the outfield as well. And that's
important. You know he's going to put him in for defensive. That's the other point Jim made earlier that was so right. You put Jones in there, who's got a better defensive outfield?
Well, I also think the rapport that he has with his players allows him to take a guy out that homered the last time, and they're not going to second guess him. They understand. I mean, Larry Herndon knows. He walked over the bench. He wants to bat, but he knows not only is Rupert Jones a better defensive player than he is, because Herndon did have 15 errors last year, even though he's been better in the field this year. He's had a great year with a bat. He's had some big hits and some very important ones.
Jones, by the way, started his career here in Kansas City, and then he was drafted by the Mariners when they came into the league in the expansion draft, and went to them and then over to the Yankees and to San Diego, and then was released. This year tried to latch on with the Pirates, was cut late in spring training, and signed with the Tiger organization. With a humbling experience for him.
That's
he
right.
was sent to the minor leagues and then called up finally in June, and boy, was he ever happy to get back to the bigs.
The steaks don't taste as good down there, do they?
What steaks?
We're talking peanut butter and jelly and grilled cheese.
Jones, left foot out of that batter's box.
That's right, typical batter trying to cheat, take advantage of the pitcher.
Oh, no. No. Oh, dear.
In the air and playable for Motley as he coasts over toward the line. And that's the end of the top of the 7th. At the end of 6.5 at KC, Detroit leading by a score of 5-0. Rupert Jones takes over for Larry Herndon in left field. We talked earlier about his going down to the minors, and yesterday he reflected back on it.
Every now and then, if a player in the middle of his career, at the height of his career, could go back down and have to start again, he might realize how wonderful it is up here and how wonderful the stakes are up here. You know, sometimes I think the stakes get too thick for all of us up here, and we stop to forget that how lucky we've been. And I think that's half of the battle, is that Rupert had to go all over again and earn a spot again.
Sparky Anderson talking about what it meant to Jones. Summing up very much the feelings of Rupert.
Well, he agrees with Jim. They don't get stakes down there.
Bottom of the 7th inning as Orta takes outside. Ball 1. 1-0 the count. Orta, Motley, and Balboni. Tigers on top 5-0. To right center field on a line. Lemon racing back. She's off the wall and bounding back toward the infield. Lemon can't play it. It's picked up by Gibson, and Orta will be held at third.
So finally got around on a pitch. That's the George order, I know. Now watch Sparky. One more hit. You'll see action in that bullpen very shortly.
I think something that shows the maturity of Kirk Gibson. Watch him back up on this play. A lot of right fielders just stand over in right field and watch Lemon. And actually, Gibson's the guy that picks it up, even though it doesn't mean much. It does keep from maybe being an inside the park home run.
Triple for Orta. The most solidly hit ball for the Royals tonight. The infield, of course, can play back with Motley at the plate. The count is 1-0.
Did you see that tight shot of Motley, Jim? Who's he remind you?
I don't know. No Neck Williams?
He looks like Walt No Neck Williams, except he's got a neck.
So then how can he look like No Neck?
Facially. Not neckily.
How do you remember Walt No Neck Williams?
How do I what?
How do you remember him? White Sox?
I remember him from he played with Steve Carlton in Winnipeg, and I remember a massive home run he hit off me over the exits in Baltimore.
Everybody had a massive home run.
That's grounded to short. It will score a run as Trammell throws out Motley. Infield playing back. They're just looking for outs so they can cede the run to Kansas City to make it 5-1. And with one out, the batter is Steve Balboni. I remember watching Walt No Neck Williams when he played for Hawaii just before he was called up by the White Sox in '68. He set a Pacific Coast League record with 11 straight hits. He got word during the game he was being called up, and the 12th straight hit was a home run into a little hole in the scoreboard that was worth $1,000 from a local retailer.
You know, when I mentioned the name, I didn't think we were going to do a profile or an up-close and person. Good Lord.
Well, I've learned at your knee. 1-0 pitch is lifted in the air to left field, and in comes Jones to make the catch. So along came Jones to take care of Balboni. 2 down.
The second baseman, Frank White.
Frank White has grounded out twice.
Tigers, everyone!
Here's the 0-2 pitch. Lined into center field for a base hit. Juggled momentarily by Lemon, but you're not going to take any risks on the base pass. So White is at first base with 2 down. And Don Slaught. 1 for 2 is the batter. Think back to the Kansas City glory years, and I guess the most glorious of all would be 1980, when they won their 4th division title in 5 years and their only pennant. Darrell Porter was the catcher that year. When you go back and think about it, Willie Aikens was the first baseman, and Freddie Patek, and along came U.L. Washington, the shortstop. Fly ball down the right field line, curling into foul ground, and Gibson runs out of room. So there's been quite a revampment for Kansas City as we look in super slow-mo at the pitch delivered by Morris, upon which White singles to center. Super slow motion. Great shot from right back of the plate.
That's the only way you could hit it if it came in.
I had to see it just like that. You're right. And it was a wiffle ball.
What did Earl say today? He said if he could have slowed the ball down that much when he hit, he might have been able to hit 260 with some home runs.
You think so?
No, but he said it. I'm just telling you what he said.
Guess who's in the bullpen as you look at
Sandy
Slaught.
Don Slaught's lady.
Is done, and in the Tiger bullpen, the ominous figure, ominous for Kansas City, Willie Hernandez gets up.
When you do that, one more hit, that's it. Sparky puts it down.
I think the intense look on Sandy Slaught's face kind of epitomizes the playoffs. You don't win, you don't get to the World Series. Probably more pressure on the wives. They're already planning to spend that loser share or the winner share of the World Series. A lot more money if you get there.
What an elevator ride, too, emotionally in the playoffs. You go in with such high expectations and you feel good, and then all it takes is that one loss and you get that sour feeling in your stomach as it's grounded in the right field for a base hit. So the Royals have cut it to 4, and the runners at first and second with 2 down, and Onyx Concepcion coming up.
Now let's see what happens. I said you got a 7-inning game here, right at the start.
This is a curious circumstance here because you've got, very rarely would you see this, the 9th place hitter comes up, you're down by 4, you've got 2 men on. Most 9th place hitters in the league would come out for a pinch hitter, but you're dealing with the guy who has the best average in the league since the All-Star break.
370. So there's Willie, ready to come in. Sparky told me he'll never have Hernandez another year like this one. It's impossible. Hernandez told me, not impossible. I could do it again. And if he does, Sparky will be king of the hill, top of the heap.
And I'm sure Sparky at the end of next year. Next year, Sparky will say he can't have another year like that. But deep down in his heart, he hopes he can.
Strike 2.
Oh boy, he really chased.
0-2 on Concepcion.
Well, if you want to get Concepcion out, you want to throw him breaking balls. There you see that good hard slider. I mean, Morris throws his fastball up 95, 96, 97, and his slider is over 90 miles per hour. I don't think there's another pitcher in baseball that has a slider that's that quick.
That was another interesting draft. 370, 2 outs, runners in scoring position.
And in the air to left field, and a lazy and easy fly ball to Rupert Jones. Retires the side. They settle for 1 run, 3 hits, leave a couple. To the 8th, we go 5-1 Detroit. Back with more after this word from your local stations. Royal Stadium in Kansas City. Al Michaels, James Palmer. Probably don't recognize this fella. I haven't seen him in about 5 or 6 weeks. Your name again, sir?
3 blind mice. It's fun. Fun to be with Jimmy. Remember all the bad pitches.
Scoring summary. First inning, Tigers get 2. And then Herndon hits a home run in the 4th inning. Trammell homered in the 5th inning, and then Trammell drove in another run with a base hit in the 7th inning. Big night for Allen. He's driven in 3 with a single, a triple, a home run. He's also walked. Fielded flawlessly. And Kansas City getting on the board on Ortiz triple and Motley's ground out in the bottom of the 7th inning. Now we go to the top of the 8th with Barbaro Garbe to lead off. Then Lemon. And then Evans.
Turned out to be a very functional player for right there.
Base hit, his second of the night.
Can play third, can play first, most acceptably. Good, consistent hitter.
Not a home run hitter, but as we see here,
That's right.
Can slap the ball, move it around. Better low ball hitter than a high ball hitter, but as you said, a functional player that has been part of the puzzle that's got them where they are. Somebody wasn't there last year. Made him a better ball club.
Chet Lemon.
People don't know this man, Chet Lemon. My book, the finest defensive center fielder in baseball, and a remarkable person. It's not for nothing, Al, that at the All-Star luncheon this year in San Francisco.
Liner, caught by Brett to the out. Right on the money.
What a shot. You'll remember, Al, because you spoke beautifully there, and that's not a kudo. That's not meant flatteringly. Chet Lemon was selected to represent the American League All-Stars. He made an absolutely compelling speech.
And you're right, people don't know that much about him as you watch him line one to Brett.
Very shy, withdrawn man.
It's the great thing about the playoffs, though, postseason, because a guy like Lemon, who's had a pretty good career with Chicago and with Detroit, has not gotten the type of exposure that would indicate to people around the country what type of a player he is. Same thing with this fellow right here, basically, too, and Darrell Evans. There goes the runner as Evans rips it in the gap to left center field for a base hit and maybe more. Cut off very deep, and Garvey, who was running on the pitch, will round third and score on a double by Evans. Second hit of the night for Evans, and that's 12 hits now for Detroit, and they lead it 6-1.
It's the fastball away that Evans goes with. Up the gap.
And Sparky puts in a pinch runner.
Dave Bergman's going to go in to run for him, and Bergman will take over at first base as well.
And Bergman is an absolutely brilliant fielding first baseman, and Sparky never stops. With the game quite apparently in hand, using that roster.
Didn't Dave Bergman hit the big home run the first Monday night game that you did up
Certainly did.
in Detroit?
And made several spectacular plays at first base.
That was one of the great at-bats ever. Remember that night?
Fouled them off, fouled it off almost interminably. Then got his pitch and bang, upper deck.
Well, Roy Lee Jackson, as I recall, something like 8 foul balls with a count 3-2. As Castillo swings in. But then the amazing thing was Jackson made a very good pitch. He ran it low and in on him, and he golfed it out. Did Bergman. There he is at second.
Former Yankee. Remember, he came up a game I had to win I suppose, win a Cy Young Award in 1975, the last day of the season. He played first base for the Yankees.
He also played.
There's a soft looper into right field, and that's trouble and a base hit. Bergman will round third and come in to score on the single by Castillo, and the Tigers lead it 7-1 in the 8th inning.
He also played efficiently for the Houston Astros, you'll remember, in that remarkable playoff series against Philadelphia.
Bergman hits it up the alley and gone through the gap to the wall. Here comes Cruz around third. Here comes Cedeno. And it's a triple for Bergman, and it's 7-3 Houston.
That's what we call a somewhat defensive swing. He's fooled. Kind of pitch you like to make if you're a pitcher. If you get him to hit it that soft, you're going to usually be pretty effective, but not on that pitch as he loops it into right field.
Now Whitaker at the plate. One and oh.
This is only game one of a best-of-5 series, but there'll be no hype here. This makes tomorrow a must-win situation, no matter how you slice it for the Royals.
2-1, and Slot losing the ball long enough for the runner to advance as Castillo is able to take the extra 90 feet after a pitch in the dirt.
Actually, it was a good block, that backhand block, Jim.
What you try to do as a catcher is get in front of the ball, but when the ball bounces that far out in front of home plate, with the kind of spin that sometimes it's imparted by a breaking ball, you just want to try to get your glove on it, and he did do that.
Scored as a wild pitch. Still only one out here in the 8th inning. Tigers on top 7-1. And he hit it off his
Oh,
foot.
that hurts. Oh, does that hurt.
Risky run, fouling one off the pitch, breaking low and in on you.
And Alexander Hamilton High School on Robertson Avenue in Los Angeles, when Al Michaels was growing up and representing his team, he hit his ankle just that way and became a broadcaster.
How did you know that?
I never knew you played the game, Al.
Al played the game.
Oh, no. I'm co-authoring Howard's new book. When is your book coming out now?
It'll be out very shortly.
Okay. What is the name of your book?
I never played the game.
So obviously that never happened to you.
As a matter of fact, it did.
2-2 pitch is lined to right field, but Sheridan goes back on this one and makes the catch, and Castillo tags at second, and Marty advances to third.
They don't let up, do they, Jim?
The shortstop,
Two down. Tomorrow, 2 o'clock, Wrigley Field. Can the Cubs make it 2 straight? Can San Diego even the series? It's Mark Thurmond and Steve Trout.
Steve has had a lovely season, and this is what we've got tomorrow night. Now, as Frank White pointed out in the talk we had earlier and played for you, they have beaten Petrie. They've got confidence against Petrie.
Strike 1 to Trammell.
Well, if Trammell can get a double here, he hits for the cycle. Nobody has ever hit for the cycle in a league championship series game. But I was talking about Frank White. Cycle, of course, a single, double, triple, and home run. You got to have played the game
to know it, right? Castillo at third. And the 1-1 pitch. 2-1.
What'd you say, Jim?
I was just thinking, I hope maybe they get a National League umpire to volunteer to go over to Chicago tomorrow. I've been kind of impressed with the job that Bill Deegan's done.
Deegan's probably won a spot back there tomorrow. Here's your first appeal on a strike call, and they don't get it. 3-1.
And he did the right thing.
Mr. Bible was absolutely right. Look at this. He held it up.
You're wondering what the umpires are getting paid. They're getting paid exactly what the other umpires would have been paid. They're getting $10,000 for the series if it goes 5, $2,000 a game. As Trammell takes ball 4, here's the difference would be the other umpires would have gotten 10 grand 3, 4, or 5 games, and these fellas are, according to Dick Butler, getting $2,000 in an outing. As Hauser goes to the mound, Gibson is coming up. And Dick's going to go to the bullpen. So Hauser still looking for his first ever postseason win in his 7th game. Finds his team in arrears. Detroit leading by a score of 7-1.
Relief pitchers are baseball's late inning heroes. Major League Baseball salutes Kansas City's Dan Quisenberry and St. Louis's Bruce Sutter as winners of the 1984 Rolaids Relief Man Awards. Dan Quisenberry of the Kansas City Royals won his 4th Relief Man Award in the American League, and also notching a 4th-time award as he set a new National League record for saves was the St. Louis Cardinals' Bruce Sutter.
The preceding message was furnished by Major League Baseball.
Presenting the 1984 American League Rolaids Relief Man Award is Fred Finlayson, Vice President Sales, American Chickle Group, Warner Lambert, makers of Rolaids.
Rolaids never forgets what relief means to the team and to us at Rolaids. So we're very proud to recognize the American League's top relief man with this award. Again, this year, Rolaids spells relief. Dan Quisenberry.
Thank you, Fred. Thank you, Rolaids, for this fine award. And I'd like to thank my defenseman for keeping the puck away from the net, or else I'd need one of these.
It's a story in itself that Mike Jones is even able to pitch. He was a fellow who looked as if he was going to have a tremendously promising future with the Royals after pitching very well in 1981, and then he got into a horrific car accident in the offseason that year.
Right fielder, Kirk
They didn't know about his life at one particular point, and certainly they severely questioned whether he'd be able to play baseball again. Sat out all of 82. Went through rehabilitation, worked his way back in the minors in 83, and here he is pitching in the big leagues again. Mike Jones. And he comes in with Castillo, the runner, at third, and Trammell at first base. 2 down, 8th inning, 7-1, Detroit. What a no. Jim, we were here in 81, the divisional playoffs. He lost the game, but he pitched exceptionally well against Oakland that day. And it looked like he would be maybe the ace of the staff in the near future for Kansas City. Out of play.
Yeah, not overpowering, but mixed his pitches up. He's left-handed. I tell you what, a lot of teams covet left-handers. It's really nice to see a guy like Mike come back and be able to pitch. He's not having an excellent year, but I think, again, another off season. Go to spring training with renewed confidence. I don't know if he'll start on this team next year, but he can certainly be a middle reliever. Somebody that comes in games 4th, 5th, 6th inning.
Shatters his bat, does Gibson, and it's a fly ball to medium deep right field. He almost broke that bat in half, but to show you Gibson's power, it's a fly ball that deep to right. In the inning, 2 more for Detroit. Another look here. In on the trademark and into the glove of Sheridan. Tigers add 2 in the 8th. It's 7-1 Detroit at the end of 7½. Sparky makes some changes for the Tigers. It's Tommy Brookins who replaces Whitaker at second base. Bergman went in to run for Evans, stays in at first base. Jack Morris, they're telling us, has a blister. And that means Willie Hernandez comes in.
Exactly what we were talking about. Blister or no blister, I believe Willie would have come in. 7 innings, Jack Morris, that's all they want. Then you've got this guy. And if you want to know why it's a 7-inning game, if you're behind the Tigers, listen to this. They were 87-0. 87-0 this season in games in which they took a lead into the 9th inning.
Willie Wilson, it's a fly ball to center field. And it's Lemon waiting to make the catch. So 1 pitch and 1 away here in the 8th inning. And Lynn Jones will come up, a former Tiger. Jones, a utility outfielder for several seasons. Came over to Kansas City, and Lynn, who has been platooning of late with Sheridan, will hit for him here in the 8th inning. Call him the Professor. Scholarly-looking Jones.
Contact hitter, goes to right field. Not much power. You can see the average over 300. And I marvel at Willie Hernandez. He's got a 90-mile-per-hour fastball. He's got a screwball that Mike Cuellar taught him.
He drives him crazy with the screwball. He's so effective against righties.
Right center field, and it's Gibson ready to flag this one down.
Then he fools them, as you know, Jim. He'll keep throwing them the screwsy, and just when they're always looking for the screwsy, he'll throw them the fastball into the inside corner.
I hate to say you're exactly right, but that's what Roger Craig says. What he has done this year is establish the inside part of the plate to right-handed hitters with his fastball. When you do that, and you have an excellent screwball, and he's down in Puerto Rico, he worked with Mike Cuellar. Mike Cuellar, as you know, had a great screwball.
He sure
Outstanding pitcher. Won a Cy Young Award. Shared it with Denny McLean. There you see the high fastball.
Pop fly, shallow center. Trammell to make the catch.
He comes in, and it doesn't take long, does it?
About 1 minute and 45 seconds. On to the 9th we go. Tigers 7, Royals 1. Lance Parrish, Rupert Jones, and Barbaro Garbe coming up for Detroit. And Lynn Jones, who pinch hit for Sheridan in the bottom of the 8th, stays in the game in right field as we go to the top of the 9th inning.
Well, so far we've brought the public 2 thrillers in one day. Combined score of 20-1.
But tomorrow is another day. Parrish swinging and missing. 0-1. 2 balls, 1 strike. In the air to deep left field, and at the fence and leaping up, but I believe it wound up in the seats, and it did for a home run. It popped out of a fan's grasp, and it's a home run as so signaled by the left field umpire, Harold Jordan.
He was due. The 2 he hit earlier were better hit balls than that one.
Well, you don't hit 33 home runs if you're not strong. He has a way of his fly ball sometimes ending up in the seats.
I understand.
As we see right there.
So the combined score becomes 21-1.
Motley leaping. But it's 8-1 as the Tigers putting on a Cubs-like show. 3 homers tonight. And of course, as you mentioned, in some ballparks, Parrish could have had 3 tonight.
In most balls, he would have had 3.
And this is the pitcher's park.
Certainly in his own ballpark.
Here comes Rusty Kuntz to bat for Jones. Now, Herndon started, then we saw Jones. Now they go back to the left-hander, and it pretty much illustrates how deep Sparky's bench is.
And how he uses that roster.
And Rusty is really a far better defensive outfielder than a hitter, even though, remember earlier this season, he was, we go into Detroit, he's up around 490.
Yeah, and Sparky never lets up. Now, does this have any psychological impact for the next day? Running a team this way, Jim.
Fly ball to right field, and Jones.
I'm not really sure. I would think that the Tigers are very happy about not only what's happening on the scoreboard, but the fact they're getting to play. I mean, what he has done is allowed his guys to get some playoff experience, and let's face it, the Royals have more.
That's right. The Royals
only
came
3
into
guys.
the playoffs with more playoff experience than any other team. Brett, White, Wilson.
Oh, it's interesting. In Chicago today, Weaver was talking about it. Do you take Sutcliffe out of a 13-0 game or a game that's 11-0? And he said, well, if you do, you leave yourself open to second guessers. Well, what if you're one of the bullpenners of the Chicago Cubs and you get the feeling your manager's not going to take your pitcher out and rest him because he's afraid you're going to blow an 11-0 lead? What Sparky's done tonight is he's not afraid to put Kuntz out in left or Jones out in left.
Hit down the left field line and
just foul.
1-2 the count.
I don't want to run this thing into the ground, Jim, but we covered the umpire strike at the very beginning of the telecast tonight, and it was necessary to do it because it exists, because it's a major story in sports journalism, and because of a certain number of quite apparent errors earlier today as the ground of the third is whipped over to first for the out. But on balance, now with this game approaching its end, I think these guys deserve some credit. I think they've done a good job.
Excellent job. Bill Deegan was a good umpire when he retired. I don't believe he retired for the reason that he couldn't umpire anymore. I think he did it for personal reasons, and he showed out of the game for, what, 4 or 5 years, coming back and doing an excellent job.
People forget, they think about the umpire strike in '79, which lasted well into the season. The umpires also struck back in 1970. There are those umpires again tonight, as long as we're talking about them. When they struck in '70, Deegan was one of the guys that filled in game 1 of the championship series. Fly ball to left field, and it's caught by Motley, and then Deegan subsequently got the job as you look at the rest of what's turned out to be a very good umpiring crew tonight. In the inning, the homer by Parrish adds another for Detroit. The Tigers lead it 8-1. From Kansas City, this ABC Sports exclusive is being brought to you by Stroh's and Stroh Light, proud sponsors of the Stroh's Run for Liberty. By Chevrolet, drive today's Chevy, live today's Chevy. By IBM and the growing family of IBM personal computers, and by RCA, creators of video technology that excites the senses. Rusty Kuntz stays in the game, playing left field, and also a new shortstop, Doug Baker, who was called up in July and helped spell Trammell when Allen was inactive, takes over at shortstop. George Orta, twice fly to left and then triple to center, facing Hernandez. 0-1 the count. Crowd of 41,973. That's a full house in Kansas City. 1-1.
I think something we're going to have to watch is Alan Trammell talked about his rotator cuff injury to his shoulder. He's out of the ball game right now with Doug Baker in there. But the thing that bothered him the most was cold weather. Looks like it's going to be pretty nice weather here in Kansas City, but who knows what will happen in Detroit over the weekend.
Why would you be negative about that?
Well, because it concerned me. He did not throw the ball that well tonight. Certainly did wonders with a bat.
Yep.
But as I said,
good pitch to Orta to get him.
How about this Hernandez? He makes it look so easy.
Coming up tonight on Nightline with Ted Kopp, will go behind the scenes of the biggest mafia crack. A massive roundup underway in both the United States and Italy. Tonight on Nightline, immediately following your late local news.
You talked about Hernandez. Look easy. Let me put you on the mound with a 90-mile-per-hour fastball, a great curveball, a great slider, and an excellent screwball.
I lost it all at Homosassa Springs when Dazzy Vance slit his sleeve in 1927.
That's why he makes it look easy. Were you a southpaw? Or are you a southpaw?
If I were, I would have stayed in the game.
You would have played the game then, huh? Willie Hernandez, and there is
Carmen Hernandez, Willie's wife.
Willie Hernandez, many years with the Cubs, and he began to blossom with Philadelphia last year. Remember, he was with the Phillies, pitched in the World Series. Did not get into the playoffs, however, because their big man was Al Holland. And then to Detroit this spring.
He's not too shabby either.
Holland, yeah.
Remember him with the Gins?
Yeah. Holland did not have a particularly good year, though, this year.
Really sorry Bob Lurie has put the club up for sale. That's easy for me to say. He took a lot of losses. Look at that.
Right.
It is too much. Excuse me.
Striking out.
But Lurie, one of the loveliest
The first baseman, Steve Balboni.
Ownership. Screwball right there.
Well, if they'd ever figure out a way how to build a stadium there, then it might be a different story. But the city that knows how doesn't know how to build a facility is what it amounts to. Why don't you buy the club?
I've been debating it.
Well, no, Weaver's available.
He's got to stop.
What?
I love Earl Weaver.
So do I. But I mean, have you picked up well, you don't read papers, but Al, have you picked up a paper?
Howard doesn't read a paper. He calls me this morning. Have you seen the Billings Gazette?
Dave McNally was highway commissioner.
It was Shelby in 1923 when Dempsey and Kearns ran out with the 100,000 silver dollars. Come on.
2-0 pitch is a strike.
Anyway, getting back to Earl Weaver, have you read a paper where he hasn't been politicking for a managerial job? I mean, you got to keep all the doors open, but all 26 clubs?
You're mean.
I know.
2-2 on Balboni. So Hernandez trying to wrap this one up with a flourish by striking the side out. He's retired 5 straight. The Tigers are a strike away from going up 1-0 in the playoffs.
He's got the perfect guy up there, 139 on the year.
And one tonight. Squibb down to first, and it will be Bergman who will end it unassisted. And Morris and Hernandez combine on a beauty. Trammell with a single, a triple, and a home run. Solo homers by Parrish and Herndon. 14 hits in all for the Tigers, and they rout Kansas City as Detroit beats the Royals 8-1 in Game 1.